Hey, good evening and welcome to the Gin&Tonic show on Friday, the 27th of April, 2018 at 8 p.m. UK time. I want to welcome my co-host. Hey, good evening and welcome to the Gin&Tonic show on Friday, the 27th. Good evening, guys. How are you doing?
Hi, all.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
There's obviously been a little bit of news. Some people are chatting in the chat here. One of the Muslim Saracen, who's sort of more of a moderate Muslim, has been calling out some of the people he thinks are extremist and racist, and there's been all kinds of personal things going on backwards and forwards there, if you do follow any of those sort of things. So there's always a bit of drama going on, and Ali Dawah was in his car doing a live stream with another fellow, sort of cursing out Saracen, calling him a donkey. And he wasn't paying attention where he went, so he ended up at a toll booth and had to reverse out of a toll booth because he went down the wrong way. Instead of paying attention to the road, he was paying too much attention to calling Saracen a donkey. So there we go. So what I thought we'd do tonight is we had a think about it. What I thought we'd do tonight is a video critique. And I've been through this particular video a couple of times, and I've passed it on to Stops. And Steve, you'll see it come up on the screen, and feel free to obviously shout as well to stop this. We'll do the crazy comments in relation to this video. But the reason I wanted to do this particular video is because I listened to this a little while back. And for those of you who haven't heard, this video is in relation to a Muslim fellow by the name of Shabir Yusuf. Some of you will be familiar with him if you hung out here at all with us. I've had many discussions with him in Speaker's Corner, and Stop Spamming has done some critique videos of him as well. And then, of course, there's the infamous video where he and Sarah had a discussion about Moses and all that sort of stuff. And that's still quite a legendary discussion as well. But the reason I wanted to do this particular one, because it was slightly different. He was speaking to a vegan. And for those who don't know, vegans, claim that they don't eat meat or get involved with anything that's to do with animals, because animals are, for the most part, are suffering in factory farming and all that sort of stuff. So he was having this conversation with this vegan. But as I went through it, the first time, I was like stunned at how bad it was. And I went through it again, and I picked up a number of things that I'd missed the first time. And you will hear a masterclass in sophistry and obscurantism. So, this is the way not to have a conversation if you want to get any clarity. So if you want to keep it as muddy and murky and avoid clarifying or defending any points, then you will hear tonight a masterclass on that. And I'm going to pick that apart along with Stops and Steve. So we'll get to that shortly. But before we do, guys, have you got anything you want to add before we jump into it?
Right.
I do.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, Steve, you got nothing?
No.
Okay. What I would like to say is I was fascinated by let's call it an incident with the best president this planet has ever seen, by the name of Donald the Mobble the Trump, and him calling into a news show and then going on a 30-minute rant. And this rant that this president delivered reminded me so much of what Muslim, what do you want to call them, apologists, followers, or whatever you want to call them, what they are delivering, because what they are actually doing is they are damaging the cause, they're damaging Islam more than anyone else could. And this is what Trump was doing, that he was damaging his own case, that he now actually admitted that there was an issue with this, what was it, this porn actress or something. And now all of a sudden he said, yes, my lawyer did do that, where before he said, no, I don't even know what they're talking about, I have no clue. Now he says, well, yeah, this lawyer did it. Then they're trying to make it a huge deal that nothing that this lawyer has can be made public due to the confidentiality of the President of the United States. And now this very same president goes and says, he didn't do anything for me. This is like a teeny tiny fraction of what I do. And now he's hurting his own case because now all the stuff that they have on this lawyer can be made public. So this Trump is like a stupid little child, like a stubborn child. And even the people on Fox News had to shut him up and then say, Mr. President, we think you've got millions of things to do, so we're not going to keep you. Goodbye. And then they continued. This is how stupid it was. And this is exactly what the Shabir, what hijab, what Shabir, what sources, what all these people remind me of. Hurting their own case, not knowing when to stop, not knowing what it is that they are actually saying, and damaging Islam more than anything else. And this is where I had to laugh. I was laughing out loud when I heard this, when I saw the videos now. That was just that this is just something that I wanted to, to bring as a comparison, because I thought it is so telling that the two are so incredibly similar, what they're doing and how they're damaging the actual cause.
Sometimes it's just a case, isn't it, of letting somebody speak and they sort of, in inverted commas, convict themselves.
And this whole thing with the vegan, I think, is over the top. Okay, I personally think that evolution has made, because you have this omnivores, ruminants, and so on. So you have different possibilities of different metabolisms breaking down using enzymes, breaking down different proteins, different food structures, and humans can eat everything and anything and can eat meat for a reason. And I strongly disagree with keeping, and this is especially now towards the Muslims because they don't want to eat pork, so they keep chicken in horrible conditions because they are eating double the amount of chicken than anybody else, because in other countries you still have pork. And we're slowly starting to lighten up, I think, where we're going more towards bio, where we're going more towards chicken need to be outside, pigs need to be outside, cows need to be outside. Or we can go ahead and do anything with animals. And I think this is the right approach. To go vegan, I think, is over the top, because I don't think we're hurting sheep when we are taking the wool off them. So that's my personal view on that.
Steve,
obviously the future.
You've got the biological, you've had some biological training, haven't you? Have you got any thoughts on vegan per se before we get into it? What's your thoughts?
Well, I would say biologically we're omnivores. But as I just said, I think insects are the future source of protein. Very, very easy and uncostly to the planet to grow and to breed. And if anyone's ever been to Thailand and bought insects on the street food side, they are fantastically tasty.
Yeah.
Can't say that I have, and I would probably be quite resistant to it, just the thought of eating insects of all things. But I suppose, like anything, you can acquire a taste. Although, I don't know if you guys know, they are producing like bio meat in America. If you go on one of Sam Harris's podcasts, is with the director of a company that is producing like meat that they grow that tastes exactly like meat. It has got all the good things. It's going through FDA and all that sort of stuff. I'd be interested from you guys. If we could grow meat, like literally grow it in a healthy way that tasted like meat, gave you the same goodness, for whatever degree you get goodness out of meat, would you guys eat that?
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's been the first beef burgers that have been made in the laboratory.
Yeah.
And you probably cannot tell the difference.
No, and certainly from a nutritional point of view as well.
What I find odd is vegan tofu or stuff which is being shaped and made to look like a sausage. I find that somehow perverted.
I can't say I've seen that one yet. All right, so let's get started. Let me just start with some of the comments, and these comments are specifically. Oops, daisy. Let me just present to everybody there so we can all see it. So these comments are related specifically to the video that we are going to critique tonight. And here's one. Vegan owned. Oh my God, I just watched Hijab Ali, but Shabir is next level, calm and cool and to the point. May Allah give him more knowledge and guide him in a straight path. Now, if I get to the end of this video and you can still honestly, without pulling a face, still suggest that this gentleman and some of his other commenters here are correct, then either I am in a different world or other people are in a different world. We shall see. Don't know if you can see it. Might be a bit small here. Let's see if that makes it any bigger. Giving 1,000 to anyone who shuts this guy down with proof. I'm sure this is the same thing. I'm letting anyone go that far with religion. The stuff he's saying is insulting. Okay, so this is obviously not from this particular video. And it's something I won't let slide. If anybody gets rid of this guy, gets $1,000 from me personally. This must be Tan, I'm guessing. This is not free speech. You don't get this far with religion. Go to hell with his speech. I hope you get punished soon. So there we go. There's somebody offering. So this is, to me, I don't know about you guys, this is very much on the line of, if not inciting, incitement to violence. Here is
this is a hit job.
Say again?
This is a hit job.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
An incitement to violence. So there we have one. I'll post this on actually to somebody who's sending some of these things through to the police at the moment. So I'll post that on. I forgot I had this one actually.
You don't go this far with religion. Of course you do.
How far do we go? How far you, Mr. Halal, say we can? Who died and made you in charge? These people don't get it. We're constantly fighting the thing. As you guys know, we obviously had this Count Dankula verdict. He was found guilty of extreme offensive speech. Or Steve, you'll know the exact words, won't you? And fined £800. I was on a live stream with him, by the way, the night before. His live stream was called Dead Man Walking. I've never seen so many super chats come through. He was reading off another board or bulletin or server, not on YouTube. I was on the YouTube when I was just watching it, about 6,500 viewers. It was incredible. It was chinging up. I can't quite say. I'll be slightly over the top if I said it was just like a slot machine, but it wasn't for. I've never seen another live hangout, and I've been on hangouts where there's been 20 to 30,000 people on hangout. I've never seen a hangout like that with so many people donating in money. I saw a couple of $500 donations, a couple of people with £5. They were saying, hey, I'm skint, but I want to send you this money. And he and his girlfriend again, like, hey, no, please don't send us money if you haven't got money. It was incredible. The outpouring of money and support was, I've never seen something like it.
He raised over £100,000 in less than 24 hours.
Incredible. But this just shows you, and this is around the world, obviously it's not just in the UK. It would be nice if it was just the UK, and then you could add the rest of the world as well. But this just shows, I think, where there's so many people that don't have a voice, that aren't speaking, that value and see where we're going with this slowly, the erosion of freedom of speech. And so, again, here's the limit for me is this particular speech here, or this comment here. This is where I would draw the line here, and I think hopefully any fair-minded person would. Right, let's move on to other ones. Here we go. This is specifically again for the Shabir video. That was brilliant, brother Shabir. You are truly guided by Allah. Allah. Now let me just check something with you, Stops. Is it true that the Sunnis claim that they are not permitted to do taqiyya?
No.
Okay, so taqiyya is a methodology that any Muslim can use?
No. Taqiyya is just a word. It's a specific, let's say, instrument that is being used by the Shia. They brought this whole thing up. So this taqiyya thing is a word that is exclusively used by the Shias when it comes to lying about the status of their religion. The whole thing of taqiyya was invented or created to enable Muslims, where it says in the Quran you're not allowed to lie anyway when it comes to saving yourself, when it comes to being identified as a Muslim. In those days you had this, and in those days you were allowed to do it. That's the origin. It was then moved into today, where the people say, well, the Shia are the ones who are the liars because they are officially allowed to lie, which is not true, because the Quran explicitly prohibits this. Now, the way that you get around it is that the Sunnis are saying, well, Muhammad said all is fair in love and war. Well, I'm paraphrasing. And this is why they are allowed to lie when it comes to anything to benefit their Allah. And now what is happening is that a lot of people have heard about this concept of taqiyya and are using it as a synonym of anything that has to do with lying. So
Right.
you need to differentiate between the historical origin, the etymology of this entire word and what is behind it, and the practice of what is being done today. This has nothing to do with taqiyya.
Right. So deception would be a better
Used
way.
today. I mean, like you have words today which used to mean something completely different only 200 years ago, and this is like one of these words. Today, it is being used as lying on behalf of Allah.
Okay, cool. The only reason I brought that up is because, in order for this to be brilliant, as this commenter seems to be under the misapprehension, is if you did not want to get to a point, if you specifically wanted to avoid getting to any point and confusing your opponent and not actually dealing with anything honestly and openly, if that is the goal, then this commenter is correct. If that is not the goal, which I hope it would not be in most people's view, then of course it's not. So that was the reason I brought it up. Yes.
Yeah, but Shabir is always going against what the Quran says, because the command is from the God that, number one, don't talk about things that you have no knowledge of, and number two, don't keep anything that will conceal the truth. So Shabir is doing both of those constantly.
Yes, so that's a good point. So so that's contrary to the Quran, isn't it? So good. Here's another one. Bro Shabir is such a graceful destroyer of silly arguments. And again, this is just one of the reasons why I want to go through this video. Now, I don't expect this person or any other Muslim to actually listen to what we're saying and take it seriously. But for those who would ever probably have to have the misfortune of having a conversation again, perhaps some of the things we'll talk about tonight might be useful to you. Please do remind me, guys, at the end as well, to give a few thoughts. I want to, and obviously you guys can as well, what one could do differently if you did interact with Shabir or somebody like him that employed these tactics. What is it that one could do to stop that, or as we would say in therapy, scratch the record? So to stop the pattern running, because he's just developed a pattern to do this. And so there's certain techniques one can do to scratch the pattern, to stop it running in a fluid way that it is, to interrupt it in a sense. So do remind me.
Just do a Sarah on him.
Yes, so that's one way of doing it.
Just don't budge. Just stick on stick to the point. Don't let him go off, and just stick to his claims. Finished. Don't make claims. Just let him make the claims. Oh shit.
You okay? It sounds like you've got.
Sorry.
What is it going?
It's Adhan. It's the evening prayer time. This guy Abu Musa, by the way, he is, if I remember correctly, this is the son of Adnan Rashid.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
And if he has inherited double the amount of IQ from his father, he is well into the double digits.
So, okay, good. So, yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about it towards the end, because obviously what you're saying is correct, Stops, but there may be a few ways to do it, because it's sometimes easier said than done when you're a viewer. Now, for you, it might be very easy, but for other people, maybe not so easy, because as we'll see tonight in the video, there's certain things that are said in order to make you think that, in fact, the conversation is progressing when, in fact, it isn't, or making you think that there's some agreement when, in fact, there isn't. So we'll cover those as well. So this must be the guy speaking to that fellow we just spoken to, Abu Musa. They won't be ever be, they all won't be ever to explain it. Holy crap. These kids are scratching. Okay, this is a different video. Obviously, these kids are scratching bro hijab because they lack the level of intelligence and are very much feeling inferiority complex. They know for sure that they are never in their lifetime can they beat him via intelligence or physically. Sarah, the lady man, the lady name in man, was slapped hard by Bro Shabir. Ooh, how bad it must have felt. It is very ironic that he saw this entire video and had the audacity to comment, painful sophistry shows his dumbness. Let's move on. Next time I will ask a chicken or a cow if it's willing to be slaughtered. Me too. I will ask them first. Lol. If that's what they got from the conversation, then holy crap. Again, obviously their brains is just not in this universe at the moment that this conversation was going on.
But Rob, it's so ironic that Muslims are the one that if you ask them, do you want to sacrifice yourself for your God? They are the ones that will say yes. Please.
Yeah. Here's another one. What would that vegan do if she needed badly blood transfusion? I guess. Let me just try and say it. What I guess he's meaning. I bet he would forget about vegan rules. What the hell has blood transfusion got to do with vegan rules? Is he suggesting that you can have blood from it, just any old animal? I mean, okay, never mind. Let's just move on. I mean, whoever this fellow is, what a blood transfusion? I think in his mind, he's thinking, hey, well, if you got animals, you can have a blood transfusion. I mean, and obviously, Steve, you would be able to share.
You know that in Kenya you have this, and I've actually watched this, how people go and shoot an arrow into a cow's vein, then gather the blood and drink it as a ritual.
Yes, yeah, lots of people. Well, I say lots. Some primitive tribes do drink blood, but I don't think you can have a blood transfusion from an animal unless you probably want to die. I mean, it's bad enough you've got to find the right, human with the right blood type. Never mind an animal. Goodness. Anyway, there we go. Plants are alive. Just because you can't hear their pain, that means it's okay to eat. Yes, we have no. Stops and I were talking about this. We have no reasons to believe that the plants suffer pain in the sense that we understand. Do they send biological signals? That's quite possible. And Stops was talking about a study, and maybe Steve's got some information. But there's no reason to believe that A, plants feel pain in the sense that we understand, or B, that they suffer in the sense that we do, because you require a brain and a nervous system for that. Now, if they suffer in some other way that's undetectable, I mean, that's always possible. But at this stage, that would be the lowest sort of form of food that we could eat. So, and we'll see in the video as well that somebody tries to make the argument about plants as well. I consider it a false equivalence. So let's see.
Yeah.
This is the last one. Sorry, Steve, you wanted to say something?
I'll just say, I wonder if they have a view on fungus, eating fungus. Where does that lie?
I guess if it's edible, they would eat it. I'm imagining if it's edible, not only edible, but I guess if it's good for you, then I guess they would. I'd have to speak to a vegan to see, all their beliefs, and maybe some have got different ones slightly. But I think all of them agree, that you don't eat animals at all, and then you wouldn't use them for, in any other way. And we'll hear what this guy has to say, and Stops, made a good point as well. So we'll get into that shortly. I think this is the last one. Plants are more precious than animals because they give us oxygen to breathe, decrease the global warming. Then why do you kill plants? Moreover, animal kingdom is so complex, like microbes, etc. It's impossible for a human to live without killing an animal. And if someone says it's possible, he's a big liar. Well, this guy is looking at a vegan who does not eat any plants and now saying it's impossible. That's like, if Muhammad came back, you said, no, it's impossible, it can't be him. It's just, here's a person in front of you that is not eating. There's millions of them around the world that don't eat animals. I mean, Jains don't eat animals either. I mean, they're the ultimate vegans, aren't they? So,
no, none of us is a vegan. It's a question in the chat.
I'm semi-vegan in the sense that most of the stuff I don't eat a lot of meat. Every now and again, I'll have a little bit here and there, but it's fairly rare. So I'm fairly close, but I don't go around saying I'm an ultimate vegan. But I do.
Do you avoid honey and milk and stuff?
No, I don't actually. I don't have. The only thing I'll have occasionally is a little bit of butter on toast here and there. No milk, but no other dairy products. So a little bit of butter on occasion. So I'm not a strict like 100%, but I'm probably 98, 97% maybe, something like that.
Is honey a no-go for vegans?
Good question. That's an interesting question. I'd have to ask them, to be honest. I don't know. I think.
Well, you'd have to be.
I guess so. It's a product from animals, isn't it?
Right.
Exactly.
We'll hear from this guy, but I don't think he's entirely clear because he doesn't use the right terminology. But as far as I'm concerned, well, as far as I can tell, most vegans, say killing of animals is immoral, and also any unnecessary suffering of animals. Now, are bees suffering if you put them into into those bee things and they just make honey? I wouldn't suspect so. So I don't know whether it goes to. That'll be an interesting question, Steve. Next time you're down there, ask one of the vegans what they think about that, and can they justify that? Because is there any suffering there? Because all these animals are living and they're just producing things, and they're not factory farmed, and they're not doing the environment any harm. So surely they'd be okay with that, I would imagine.
But he's saying that he doesn't take any wool off a sheep.
Yes, that's right. I think he said something like, we'll see what he said. I think this is the last one, and then we'll get into it. Beautiful discussion. Wish that other people didn't jump in and allowed Brother Shabir to continue to educate the vegan and all of us. So on that that note, I think the fact that Shabir is doing all this education, perhaps we'll see if we can do a little bit of our own here. And
okay, I found, I'm putting them on Thingamajig on Minicam because I couldn't send them to you. So I've got this one here now.
It's backwards, so you have to just flip it around.
Thank you very much. That's why I can't read it.
Hit the camera, and not cameraman. It's the Hangout toolbox.
Flip vertically, flip horizontal. There you go.
There you go. And I'll present you to everybody. There you go. Cool. Go for it.
Now, this is about Zakir Naik. Okay. So this is a video where somebody is commenting on Zakir Naik, and then me. I am criticizing a video with Hijab and this other guy, where they are criticizing Nike, and I'm saying this Nike was a total fool. And now this guy comments, didn't even get to college, fat and miserable, thinks he knows better than a man with a doctoral degree in medicine. 100% logic. This guy is amazing. Me, okay? Because I have no clue what I'm saying. And of course, Nike, with all his degrees and everything, he knows much.
But he's right, isn't he? He's just got a doctor, like a standard doctor's degree, and he's memorized the Quran. Or has he got other degrees?
So he claims. Does he really have that? I do not know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've never seen his diploma or dissertation or anything. I don't know what you have to do in India. Maybe you just cut it out of the back of a cornflakes packet or something. I don't know.
Well, he clearly doesn't know anything about science anyway. There you go, another one.
And then I found one on one of my hijab videos where this Yusuf M comment, hello sir, may I ask you one question? What is the evidence that has convinced you to be an atheist, which presumably you understood, otherwise it is blind belief? I'm looking forward to the evidence.
There we go. Now one could go through all the things that Ozymandias did on the other show. Or one could just, go the shortcut and say, hey, you made a claim about a supernatural entity. I see no good reasons and evidence to support that. I could go through all the other things. But I think that they do that. Some people are trying to do that now. They're trying to deflect from their beliefs to try and challenge yours, so that they don't have to defend, their mythical beliefs. And so, I can see why one would want to avoid going down that route, because all you then end up doing is telling people why you don't believe their claims, which they don't want to defend. Cool. Anything else from your side, Steve?
No.
Why are you still presenting there? I wanted to stop you presenting. Stops. Why are you still presenting? Stop presenting. There we go. That's better. Cool. Okay, let's get into the video then. Hopefully, where are we? I won't be able to see the chat now, Stop. So perhaps you can just, between you and Steve, you can just read out any comments or stop along the way.
Oi.
What's that?
I like your oi.
Okay, so we're going to start the video at about 1 minute 48 into the video. The reason we're starting here is because the vegan is on the right. I've lowered the resolution, so it's not going to be that clear, but hopefully you'll be able to hear it nice and loudly enough. So George, the vegan, is on the right. Shabir is on the left. The first 1 minute and 45 odd seconds was with somebody else where he was just explaining a little bit about veganism. So now we're going to get Shabir going in and asking his first question. I'm going to stop at regular points. If you or Steve hear something and you go, stop, Rob, just shout it so that I can hear you over the video itself. But I will stop it at certain points to get people to remind you of some of the things that he says, because it's going to be relevant later on again. And so we do need to pay somewhat attention in the beginning to some of the things that he says. So here we go.
Rob, I've got somebody in the chat saying, this is Angelina Lohan saying, the Gin and Tonic show all this talk to convince yourself of your own beliefs. No.
Now, all this talk to critique the beliefs that other people are claiming is true and that we should believe too, and for which we do not find good reasons and evidence. And in fact, we find bad reasons.
Here and tell us, what is my belief if I don't have a belief? What is that belief? I never understood this. I don't know. Why are people such cowards? Why can't they come on the show and say, listen, you're an asshole because you're an atheist, because your belief is this, and let's talk about this. Okay, let's talk about it. But coming here, going to the chat and says, no, 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 no.
Are you scared people away stops? You're a bit scary.
It's a joke. It's a joke. Sorry, it was satire. I didn't catch it. I fell for it.
Right, let's go.
What's the difference between a vegetarian and a vegan?
Just make sure you guys can hear it.
A vegetarian wouldn't eat meat.
Yeah.
And doesn't believe in using animals for any purpose at all. So that means we don't wear them, we don't wear wool, we don't wear leather, we don't eat anything that comes out of their body either. So we wouldn't eat eggs or milk. There's 20,000 edible plant species on this planet. So we can just eat, we can survive solely on plants. Vegans are living proof of that. We get all the clothing we want without harming animals as well. We don't want to experiment on them either. So it's a stance against all animal use. Does that make sense?
So I reckon the eating is out of the question.
Yes, eating, wearing, exploiting in any way. Yeah, entertainment, anything. We're against horse racing, so we're against animal use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Generally.
Just use.
Sorry, but then that clarifies it. It means no honey, because using animals in any which way means taking honey away from bees. So that's it.
Yes. So his
Which is bizarre. It's almost saying it's irrespective of any pain or suffering, or lack of pain or suffering.
Yes.
Yes, yes. So I think different vegans will have different ideas. So that's his one. And maybe one should ask him those questions, because that might actually get him to think about it. Because if he's going to say, you shouldn't keep bees in, the bee hives and stuff like that. Tell me what is the downside to that? The bees are kept, in a good place. It's not like they're factory farmed or whatever the case is. So that would be good to ask. If you ever come across them, Steve, ask them about the bee thing and see what response you get. Now, just remember,
if the cow sits on the grass, it grows. So actually, if you are eating grass, it is due to the cow. So you are using the cow's shit to get to the grass that you're eating. So,
well, yes, and many types of fertilizer for crops.
Yeah, but I guess he would say though that it's okay to eat things that naturally come off animals, but nothing where you have to use them per se. So I think he could easily sidestep that argument and just say, hey, yeah, I wouldn't go and snip stuff off, but if a clump of hair fell off, then I'd go and use that to make a shoe or something. I don't know if he would. Maybe he would. Who knows?
But on that basis, they should be happy to eat roadkill.
Yes, they could, I guess, pick it up and go and, well, yeah, but they probably just don't want to eat meat anyway, even dead meat. So,
carcasses.
Yeah. So good point. I mean, you guys could bring this up with people that, that are 100% that way and see what they say. Now, bear in mind, he's just asked him about eating animals, right? He's just asked him literally. So let's just listen here now.
Using animals for any purpose, we're completely against.
But is there a remote possibility of perhaps considering the allowance of eating animals?
If I rewind this about 10 seconds, you will hear him just ask that question. Is it okay to eat animals? So George has just explained why he feels it's against eating animals. Literally 10 seconds later, the same question is slightly reworded and asked again. So let's listen again. I want you to pay attention, because if I ask you or Stops or you, Steve, hey, would you eat animals? And you give me an explanation. I'm not then going to go and ask it literally the moment you stop giving that and say, hey, is it okay to eat animals? Like I didn't hear it, or I didn't pay attention, or what? I don't even know why you would ask that question 10 seconds later.
No, not in our situation. There's no situation we would need to eat animals. We're not in a survival situation.
Yeah.
So we can move past that.
Right, I see. So the cultures currently in the world where they are reliant on animals, that would be fine.
Okay, so what he should have said here, in my view, is no unnecessary suffering or unnecessary use of animals. And then that would have avoided this question of, hey, what about the cultures that survive on animals primarily or only? I don't think he's going to object, although he sort of makes a funny answer now. But if you just said the unnecessary use or suffering of animals, then you would avoid these sort of sideline questions that aren't of any use, really.
Yeah, there's certain cultures in the world I can't really do anything about. Like if someone's living in the Antarctic or in the desert, the Aborigines, I can't really police that in any way. Here in a developed country where we've got access to grocery stores and fresh fruits and vegetables, nuts, beans, lentils, seeds, grains, I can say to people, we don't need to harm animals in any way. We're not in a survival scenario.
Right.
You know, if we're lucky enough to live in a developed country.
Sorry, did you say something?
No.
No, okay, must have been background noise
You
there.
can
Okay.
avoid harming animals for any purpose. And that's all vegan.
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm Shabir. You are?
I'm George.
George, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. No, you see, oftentimes one of the things that I've always thought about when I look at animals, obviously, you don't want to harm them.
No.
Okay.
Just pay attention to that. He just said there, in case you miss it, you don't want to harm them. Okay. Just keep that in your mind. I'm going to stop at certain points to remind people who are watching it because it will be forgotten. He just said we don't want to harm animals. Okay, let's remember that.
But then, if I want to eat an animal, then what happens?
So, would you be? Yeah. For what reason would you want to eat an animal?
Because I love meat.
Yeah. Now, this was the same as me before I was a vegan. So the reason we eat animals is not for survival purposes. It's because we like the taste.
Let me ask you guys something. Have you got stops for you, Steve? Have you ever eaten raw meat, or have you ever eaten meat directly off an animal that's been killed?
Raw meat, yes. It's called tartare, beef tartare, but not off an animal directly. No.
No. So the beef tartare is normally prepared, isn't it? It isn't just sliced off an animal and thrown on a plate, is it?
No.
So not off a living animal, no.
No. Okay, what we have done, because there was a time when you couldn't freely buy meat, for example, so we actually went hunting.
Yeah. I can say we remember those times. Well, some people do anyway. I mean, I know still some tribes that do that. But the question that I'm putting a question to you guys, because I'm not convinced that we like the taste of meat per se. We like the taste of meat with spices and sauces and cooked and all that sort of stuff, or in a tartare format. But I'd be keen to know how many people physically like the taste as opposed to just will eat it because there's nothing else, straight off a carcass. So in other words, you know, we don't just like the taste of quote unquote natural meat. We like the processed meat, don't we?
Well, I have sushi.
Well, yeah, there's sushi. They're absolutely sushi, but also you can just the cooking process. Then you like the taste of meat. You don't need to add anything to it. You know, put a bit of meat. You're South African, Rob. You should know from barbecues. But put any piece of meat on a barbecue, and it tastes fantastic.
Well, I'd always put something on it. Otherwise, for me, it's always been very, very bland. And if you cook it too long, then it becomes like leather. Okay, cool, good. Right, let's go on.
Okay,
but this is can it be justified that we take someone's life just because we enjoy the way that they taste?
Right. Okay. Right. Sorry.
Yes. So would you say your taste buds are worth more?
Okay, just a point here. Now we're going to go on to a sidetrack with an old man here. Now I can let it run, or we can go past it, because this old man asks a few questions and stuff like that, and you'll see he doesn't make a lot of sense, and he uses sort of typical arguments. And when George gives him a response, he doesn't acknowledge it, and he just goes on to the next thing. So it's kind of a bit of a distraction because we're mostly here to focus on the conversation with Shabir. So what I'll do to make it shorter is just go on a little bit, because you'll see him talking on the side here to an older fella who says, oh, you're killing plants. And then he talks about God telling him that he can eat meat. And when this guy asks him about God, he says, stop telling God what to do. I mean, you know, that sort of level of discussion. So I think it's a bit of a distraction from the actual topic. So I want to see if I can, you know, there's the old guy. You might recognize him, Steve. I don't know if you can see this guy here. This guy over here. He might look familiar to you. But he's a complete distraction.
Yeah, an old Christian guy. He's quite moderate.
Yeah, he can't make a good argument at all here. It's just terrible and a distraction. So I want to get back to where Shabir carries on here.
I just want to comment quickly on this character here, Angelina Lowen. This is the Jinn&Tonic show. Okay, does that sort of make any kind of sense to you? Jinn&Tonic show. This is not called the vegan show. This is Jinn&Tonic, which means that there is one thing that we talk about, and that is Islam. So we talk about anything in Islam. We don't address vegans, we address Islam. So the reason why this video is here is not because it's about vegans, but because it's a Muslim apologist. I don't know, does that sort of make any sense now that when you are on the Jinn&Tonic show that we talk about jinns and Islam? You know, this is the way that we gel here. This is the Gin and Tonic show. Okay, so this is not the vegan and bed and breakfast or something show, or how to eat meat properly. We talk about Islam. So we are looking at things when they are connected to and with Islam.
Thank you for that. That anybody who's a new viewer could have been under the misapprehension. And as Tops has quite rightly said, we focus on Islam, and this particular Muslim apologist, I think, has got an incredibly deceptive way of having a conversation, which I'm going to expose to you all now, so that you can see it and hear it for yourselves. I love having a chat to Muslims if they can be honest and open. That's what we're there for. But this sort of sophistry and obscurantism defeats the entire purpose of having an honest and open conversation. And you will see it in this video. So please do not take my word for it. I will highlight certain things because they're easy to miss if you're not paying attention. But let the video speak for itself.
And can we also just emphasize, they never want to come into the proper chat. They're happy to just type away, aren't they? But they will never come and talk to us.
I've heard of this. Isn't there a word in the English language which is called heckling? I've heard of a guy in what is it called? In Hyde Park, who does this heckling kind of thing. I wonder, yes.
Yeah, who would that be?
Which one could that be?
Could resist that one.
He's a masterclass. We could do a masterclass on that. Steve, you can teach people how to do that.
Yes, there's an idea.
Right, let's get back to this now, otherwise we'll lose the thread of it here. So at the moment, so far, obviously the vegan is against it. Shabir's claim is, hey, I want to eat it because I like the taste of meat. That's as far as we've got. We haven't got any justification for, why that's a good thing to do. And as the vegan said, are you going to put your taste buds above the life of an animal? So that's as far as we got. Then we had this interaction with this old man that just asked a few questions. By all means, by the way, go and watch this video. It's here. Here is the video. I'm going to post as well into the chat here quickly. So here we go. I'm going to post this into the chat for you. Go back there again. So you've now got it in the main chat. So you can go watch the video in your entirety. The only reason I'm skipping that bit is because the old man didn't really have anything valuable in terms of what we are talking and focusing on in this video. So let's carry on.
Sorry, can the exchange? Can I just ask?
Yeah.
Are you suggesting from what the gentleman has said?
Yeah.
So am I correct in thinking that my teeth have the ability to chew through meat?
Yeah, they have the ability to chew through meat and plants. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to stop it because you guys talked about this. Would it be fair to say that we have the ability to chew through certain meats? Certainly not tough meats. I would challenge you to go and chew through a buffalo's hide that's just been killed, or an elephant, or a rhinoceros. So there's certain foods. We don't have meat-eating teeth like lions do we? So we've kind of got, what would you say, Steve, in-between type teeth?
Yeah, no, true.
So they're not specifically designed to eat meat, but we are able to eat certain meats, softer meats.
Yes, not all, like you said, not all meats, but certain meats.
I mean, if we had lions' jaws and those fangs, then you could quite clearly say we were. But let's see where he goes with this.
If they have the ability, and from what you just said,
Yeah.
you use natural selection.
Yeah.
So the current position I'm in, using that methodology of understanding, has brought me to a position where my teeth have the ability to chew through meat.
Yeah.
And if that be the case, then even from a natural selection perspective, there should be no harm in me eating the meat.
Okay.
A total non sequitur, because my teeth are also I can eat glass, for example. So what the hell, am I going to now go crazy on glass?
Well, I guess his point is that, hey, our teeth have evolved in certain ways, and therefore, because remember, this is a moral question. The vegan's position is it's immoral to eat animals. Shabir's position, or non-vegans, would be wanting to argue that, hey, it is moral. And so this is the first time he's actually made an actual argument. First, he gave an assertion of the reason he wants to eat meat is because he likes the taste. Well, big deal. Why should you eat meat is the real question. And now he's saying, well, hey, because our teeth have evolved to whatever degree, from a naturalistic point of view or evolutionary point of view, that should be a reason to eat meat. I want you to remember this because this is his claim, not the vegans. Let me make it clear. At no point does the vegans say that we should decide or make a moral statement based on our evolutionary upbringings or the way our teeth form. At no point does George say that. So this is Shabir's argument. So let's see what transpires.
Yeah, but the thing is, if just having the ability to do something does not compel you to do that.
Correct. But I guess his argument would be, hey, we did it in the past, therefore we should be justified in doing it now. And that's where an argument could be made. And that's what he's going to attempt to do, and very poorly, as you will no doubt see. So at the moment he's going, as you quite rightly said, stops. He's saying, hey, our teeth have evolved, therefore that's a reason that we should or could eat meat. In fact, he would be saying should, not could, because you're right. You could eat meat, but the real question is, should you eat meat? George says no. He's trying to argue for yes. Let's see.
But we have the capability to do many things.
No, the capability. Sorry, George.
Yeah.
The capability is through reasoning.
Yeah.
Okay, so now he says reasoning. So his first argument is evolution, and now, based on what George says, and which is what George argues for, is reasoning.
But natural selection is separate from reasoning, isn't it?
Yes, what's naturally
right. So what naturally has happened.
Well, hang on. No. Sorry, Your Honor, I object. You can't just say no. You can't say we have natural selection, and then reasoning is something completely different. You can't say that. You can't compare those two. You can't say just because I've got an accelerator pedal, I'm not allowed to use reverse gear. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. The two have nothing in common. The one thing is natural selection of the ability to eat, and then you have the reasoning, and this is exactly the differentiation that we need to make. The moral one is then applicable due to reasoning that we are using. But
Correct.
The one ability has nothing to do with the way that we are reasoning about it, whether we should go and do that. Just because we have the ability to abort a child in the 8th month or something, whatever you want to call it, should we go and do that? Just because we have an abortion at a reasonable date, we are not forcing women to do that. So, this is always the capability and ability are totally separate things.
Correct. What we're talking about here is what should we do? And what he's trying to make the distinction between is, hey, we've got these two options. One is we can use our reasoning to determine whether eating meat is a moral action. Should we eat meat or not? Or on the other hand, we have this evolutionary upbringing, and he is attempting to argue that's another way that we should eat meat. The reason we should eat meat, separate from reasoning, is that we have these teeth that have evolved to eat certain meats. That's his attempting to make that position, but as you see, it becomes very confused as you go on.
We need to point this out, that this is utter nonsense.
Well, we'll see as it progresses here. So he's trying to split them up, and George, as you see, will be quite clear on using reason.
Actually have teeth which can chew through meat, so that should be permitted logically.
But then if we take that logic, that means we should lower the age of consent to 11, because girls have evolved to be able to be pregnant around 11, and we know that that's not okay.
Now wait a minute. Again, what you just said is absolutely correct. However, taking
okay, I want the viewers to notice.
The world of Islam.
I want the viewers to notice something here. That's what he just said there. You're absolutely correct. That's called an agreement frame, and it's supposed to be used when you actually agree with somebody. But if you listen to the next word afterwards, it will always give you a clue. If somebody says I agree with you, or you're right, but if they use the word but, you know that they were not using that in these sort of discussions in an honest way. Because what you would have said is, I don't agree with you, and here's the reasons why. If you say, I agree with you, it lowers somebody's defense or somebody's psychological defense. Go, oh, he agrees with me. And so then you are less likely to be potentially as critical of what the person is saying. Again, this is used in psychology, etc., as well, to get patients to, to help them along in psychological evaluations, etc. So in my view, you should not be using the word, I agree with you, but. You should be saying, hey, I disagree with you, and here's why, or words to that effect. And it's not semantics. It's an important thing because he does this a lot. So let's hear. He said, I agree with you, but. And by the way, what I would immediately say is, what do you agree with? You just said you agree with me. What is it specifically, Shabir, that you actually agree with me? Because you just used the words there. Can you tell me what you agree with me? I want him to play back what he agrees with me, because I believe it's just like words that are coming out of his mouth. He doesn't actually agree, and he's using those words. And that's a way to scratch the record. Sorry, Shabir, you just said you agree with me. What is it you agree with?
And that's the takeaway here. This is a very, very important point. This is something that you need to put as in a summary, that if you go and you talk to somebody like Shabir, and they use this a lot, I agree with you, but immediately stop and say, okay, interesting. What is it that you agree with? That is one of the #1 things that you need to put onto your list of comebacks when you're talking to Muslim apologists.
Yeah.
Position, it should not matter, should it?
Okay, let me just go back a moment because we talked over that. So just let's go back a very small amount here and just hear what he actually said here.
Pregnant around 11, and we know that that's not okay.
Now wait a minute. Again, what you just said is absolutely correct. However, taking your position, it should not matter, should it?
Okay, taking your position, it should not matter, should it? Can anybody between the two of you or in the viewers tell me what his position is? What is George's position?
Regarding the 11-year-old, he just said very clearly that it's wrong.
Yes, and why is he saying it's wrong? What is his position? Is his because
from a moral point of view, from using reason and morality?
Correct. We've got two positions here. One is the evolutionary quote unquote position. The other is the logic and reason position.
Yes.
George's is logic and reason.
Yeah.
But taking his view, which is what Shabir said, hey, but it shouldn't make a difference taking your view. Of course it makes a difference because he's using logic and reason. And his view would be, no, that's wrong. Shabir's view is we're taking evolutionary perspective. So from Shabir's point of view, it wouldn't be wrong. That was his argument. He's now swapped it around to make it appear as if George is holding the evolutionary position, which he's not. So you've got to pay attention to these things.
Oh, it should matter because we can reason.
That's reason again. No, but if you look at natural...
Hello, George is arguing for reason. He says, yes, it's reason again. But no, if you look at it from an evolutionary point of view, that's not George's position. If you want to argue it, Shabir, please argue the evolutionary position. Don't make it appear that George has to argue the evolutionary position.
Selection, for example, I'm just going on your reasoning here. For example, naturally speaking, okay, the female body gets ready for what reason according to evolution?
To be able to have children. And that's around 11
When does
years
that
old.
start?
Around 11 years old.
So what should the age of consent be?
Well,
according to natural selection.
According to natural selection, it should be 11, but we're a society that says it should be higher.
So it entirely depends on how a perspective is being seen here. From what you have said, because if I take your reasoning to its logical conclusion, then you are going to have to disagree with yourself according to that.
What bullshit! What utter bullshit! What? Yes, this guy's so stupid, and I'm actually surprised that George doesn't just burst out laughing. Because come on, this was so absurd.
Yeah, but stops. Remember, you've been doing this for a lot longer than most people have, and this sort of sophistry and obscurantism is not something you come across every day in its extreme form like we are seeing here. What, again, all we have to do is, what is George's position? George's position is that we use logic and reason to ascertain whether something is moral. And just because a girl can give birth at, or whatever the case is, at 11, doesn't mean that it's the moral thing. Why not? Because we can use reason to show that it's not the right way. So he's saying that George will have to disagree with himself. No, George is consistent, although he's trying to make it sound like George is inconsistent. His position is evolution, George's is reason. And I'm going to keep harping because you will see later on how far this goes.
The teeth, naturally speaking, are present for me to be able to chew through meat. So, on a natural level, I should eat meat.
So then on a natural selection?
No, on a natural selection. Let's just go through. Is that yes? Yes. It is, isn't it? You can't say no.
No, so it means you can, it doesn't mean you should.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Excuse me? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. I agree with that. I agree with that. But earlier on, he was saying, and he just said it there, that evolution, we shouldn't disagree because from an evolutionary point of view, you can't argue that.
Yeah.
So what position is he actually trying to hold here?
Whatever suits him best at that moment in time.
Exactly.
I agree with you, but that's reasoning applied, okay? And I have no problem with that. However, if I'm
I have no problem with that, of course not.
Yeah.
Because of natural selection.
Let me rewind that again, just listen to this again.
But that's reasoning applied, okay? And I have no problem with that.
But that is reasoning applied, and I have no problem with that.
However, if I'm going to take your position, which is what you said to the gentleman, that look, because of natural selection.
Because of natural selection. Can you see here, people who are watching this, what happens here? He just said that he's using reasoning, and he's agreeing with his reasoning, and he's now saying because of natural selection.
X, Y, and Z
totally misrepresenting.
Sorry?
Totally misrepresenting.
I mean, it's like flipping on a coin.
Yes.
And look, it's easy for us to sit here and watch it afterwards in the heat of the moment, because the sophistry and certain language patterns are being used. I mean, for you, as you know, Stops, because you've been doing this a lot longer, it's probably much easier for you. But the first couple of times he did it with me, you know, but again, I wasn't looking for that. I was at the time going, okay, I want to have this conversation because I'd never met him before, and I always give people, you know, the benefit of the doubt when I'm speaking to them, like I've never spoken to them before. So I can understand why people don't pick this up immediately, and because the certain language patterns are being used in a specific attempt to confuse people. And it's called, the other patterns, by the way, it's called Milton models. There was a specific guy that was an expert at throwing together sentences in a way to put people into trance so that he could use it in a therapeutic environment. It's wholly inappropriate here in a discussion where you are trying to find out whether something is true and have an honest and open discussion.
And on both points that you have raised, number one, natural selection has determined for me to have teeth which can chew through meat.
At what point did George raise that? He's never raised that. Shabir asked the question. Can you see how he turns it around? It's now George's point that's being raised when it was Shabir who raised the point originally.
So there's no problem with that. Secondly, you brought up about the age of consent, which I agree with, okay? However, if we look at it from a natural selection perspective or evolutionary perspective, then you are also making the admission that as soon as that female is biologically ready, then the female is ready.
No, he never did that. That's a lie now.
Well, he did. Well, when it was asked what age was it when they become ready, he said 11. But at no point, remember what the argument is. Again, the argument gets lost here. The argument is, now because we brought up this example, when is it moral for a woman to have sex? Not when is she naturally ready? They are two separate questions. And he
never said that she's ready. Even if she's physically ready, he never said that this girl of 11 who is menstruating is now ready to have a child. Definitely not. He never said this.
No, all he said is by natural, if you're using quote unquote evolution or natural selection, then could give birth, or potentially give birth. Yeah, but that's not the question that's actually been discussed. The question is it right for her to give birth? That is the question. Should she give birth? So we've got to remember what the question is, what the topic is being talked about here.
Irrespective of the age, according to the evolutionary perspective. Am I wrong in what I'm thinking?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, as a society...
No, don't apply reason here.
No, don't apply reason, because that's your argument, and I don't want you to use your argument. I want you to use my argument that I can put onto you and make it sound as if you are using the evolutionary argument. Can people who are watching see what's going on here? George's position is reason is what we use to make a moral decision. What our shoulds and shouldn'ts are based on, reason. Now you can argue whether that's entirely accurate. That's a separate point. But listen to what's being said here. No, don't use reason, please. Please use the evolutionary argument that I brought up that I want to now pin on you so that I can straw man it against you.
Why not?
I'll tell you why.
Well, I'm saying morality. He's applying morality to the situation.
Excellent.
There we go. There's even a spectator off on the left side here that says he's applying morality to the situation to remind Shabir what they're actually talking about.
I agree. Sorry, brother.
He can see we are hurting animals. We're human beings. Yeah? We can detect that something we are inflicting pain on. Right? So that means we know it's having a bad effect. So we're applying. It's not just natural selection that's at play. It's also morality of human beings.
Okay.
If we're so concerned about nature, what about your natural compassion that you have? If you were to see a living being being harmed, sentient being, you would intervene and stop that person harming an animal. I take it.
I like I said earlier on, I see what you are saying, but as the brother here just said, and rightfully so, if we are going to bring in morality, that is subject to reason, because morality changes according.
Do you hear what's going on? What he's doing now is what's called a truism. He's repeating what other people have said as if he's making the point himself. He's not making this point himself. He's just putting together what the other guys, what George said and what this other guy said here. And now he's going to try and present something as if he's made the point himself. Pay attention here.
To which location we are in.
Yeah.
Isn't that true?
Only, well, societal laws, yeah.
It does, doesn't it? So, we just going on your point, yeah, we know that if we go back a few hundred years, the age of consent was 12 here in the UK. In fact, if you go to Europe now, they are all separate.
Yeah.
Here's the logic. If it is 16 in the UK, yeah, and it is 15 in one of the European countries, if that 15-year-old comes here, have they committed a criminal offense?
Let me stop it again here. He now moves on to a criminal offense. This is not what the argument is about. When you have a moral argument, you're not making the legal case, you're making the moral or the should case, regardless of what the law says. We are questioning, is it right to eat animals in this case, or for a young girl to have sex, or whatever the case is? We're not asking, is it legal? That's a different question altogether. But he strays onto this question again to confuse people, to throw them off what is or what should be a very straightforward moral argument that does not get involved with the law.
Yes. And now the thing is, just as a pointer from me, when you are in this situation, when you are talking to somebody like this and they come and they throw things left, right, and center and blah, 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 and you feel that it's going out of control, take a step back and say, hang on, let me just verify what we are talking about. What is your case? What is your point? What is your claim? What is it that you are saying? Where are you going? What are you trying to do? Try and establish a base again, because here, this is throwing things around left, right, and center. Nobody knows anymore what the actual point was and where this is going. This is why I always say, at this point, I've had this. And I said to Rob afterwards, shit, you know, I've been caught up in my own thing where I'm going against my own advice. Take a step back. And this is very important to remember.
Yeah, absolutely right. And you could always clarify at the beginning of a discussion. Okay, so what we're talking about is whether it's moral to eat animals or not. I believe it's immoral. The vegan would say, the other person would say, okay, I believe there is a moral case to be made. Okay, so that's our argument. Great, let's proceed. Because if you say it verbally like that right at the beginning of the argument, then you can always circle back to it if you get lost like they have here. So you're right. Either step back at that moment and go, what are we talking about? Or clarify it at the very beginning so you know what you're talking about. But again, you have to know who you're talking to. If I were to ever speak to him again, then I would have all these points in there. But I just don't see the value in it, because you won't get to any sort of reasonable conclusion.
And yes, Sarah, absolutely. We were referring to the video, which I think Kalam made, where you and Shabir clashed. That was a classic. This is why I'm always saying, if people don't know what to do to Shabir, just do a Sarah. That's it. Just stick to it. Just run him down according to his own arguments. It's the easiest way to kill him.
Yeah, and if you guys have got that video, please post it in the chat for people who are interested in going to watch that. Because Stops, you also did a video critique of that as well. But if they want to watch the full one, then again, it's on Titans TV. But please find the link and post that, because I think that's very educational for somebody, you know, taking Shabir to task live in the moment.
I don't know. The answer would be yes. Okay, but here's an issue though.
Yeah.
Age of consent, again, is, as you pointed out, is dependent on how we collectively as a society view things.
Yeah.
And things change accordingly. And sometimes it comes to the stage where some form of law has to be promulgated to ensure that people do not do anything other than that. So the age of consent was brought up to 16. Now, the problem here is, and I'm sure research will show you, that when you look at the readiness sexually of partners, okay, male and female, the age is rapidly starting to go down again. Yeah.
Is that true, guys? I've not seen anything. Maybe Steve or Stops, you could say that's true. I don't know if it's rapidly coming down or coming down at all.
No, it's not. It fluctuates, it varies, but there's no such thing that you can say it's at this age and in the year X it was at this age. There is no such thing. All we know, it fluctuates, and there has been a shift, and at the moment it's going down again.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And what was going down to what? I mean, it's you know, you need something to say what it was prior to know what it's going down to. What does going down mean? What was
Well,
it before 10 and
trend.
now it's 9? Or?
Taking a trend line. No, you're taking a trend line. Okay, do you know what an error bar looks like?
Yeah.
What you say is you take a value of 7, but then you have an error bar which indicates that it could be 6 or 8. So the probability of it being 7 is higher than it being 6 or 8 or something. So the probability is higher of 7, and this is why the trend line will go to 7 and so on. So the age that you're looking at is, it used to be 14, then it went to 15, then it went back to 13. So we're looking at general trends, but there is no absolute number that you can assign here.
Okay.
In fact, the researchers are suggesting that it has now come back to the age of 8. Question is, well, this is what we are.
That's a bullshit. No, there's been a girl in Brazil which even menstruated at the age of 5, but that's way out of the norm. This has nothing. This does not influence the trend at all.
Yeah, it's an anomaly. Yeah.
Sorry, Steve, you were going to say.
No, I was just challenging 8, figure of 8.
Yeah, I mean it's irrelevant really to this discussion, because he's just throwing in these numbers here.
No, Rob, not, because he's trying to bring it down. You see, he's going in the direction of marrying at 6 and having sex at 9 is absolutely okay if the girl is ready for it. In other words, if she has menstruated, this is where it's going, I'm sure.
Yeah, but we know that, again, you can apply reason to show that that's an immoral act anyway, but that's George's position. So this whole thing still goes around. He's trying to argue two things here. One is he's still trying to argue the evolutionary side of it, and B, he's obviously trying to now bring in the jurisdictional view on it as well. Neither of those are well, he hasn't even remotely successfully argued the evolutionary point of view, but he's now bringing in the judicial point of view as a red herring, because it's not relevant to the moral argument.
Now, here is the question which we ought to answer. If you have evolution and you have reason, which one will take precedence?
Reason, without.
How many times has he got to say this? He said reason before, hasn't he? We all know that's George's position because he said it about 10 minutes ago in the video.
I doubt.
Okay.
Because
I've just been corrected. Somebody corrected me. It was a Peruvian girl called Lina Medina, apparently, and I thought it was from Brazil, but it was one country further west. It was in Peru. Sorry.
And she was 5, right?
This is what I remember. But I also remember that she was from Brazil, so I don't know why I got Brazil and Peru mixed up.
Yeah, but she was an anomaly, as you quite rightly pointed out. That's not the trend, is it?
Can I just say, someone's just said in the chat, what has the period of a woman or the age of consent got to do with veganism? And I was starting to wonder, how did the conversation move from veganism onto age of a woman?
Okay, good. A good question. Can you see how easy it is to get confused here? Because at one point, Shabir's position was, hey, if evolution is true, if evolution is an argument to eat meat, and so George actually brought in the argument about a woman, because he was saying, what was he originally saying about the evolution? He said something about the evolutionary argument, and then George says, well, hey,
so you need to reason. He says you need to apply reason because theoretically a girl can menstruate when she's 11, but we use reason to say that she shouldn't be pregnant at the age of 11, but she should wait a couple of years until she's also mentally ready for, to be a mother.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. But George brought up the example of a girl at 11. He brought the example up as a counter to Shabir's point about the evolutionary argument as to why evolution is moral. So he said, well, in that case, it must be moral for, to have sex with a 11-year-old girl. And that's how we got onto this, Steve. He brought up the example, and now they veered off onto the separate thing. It will get back to veganism, but it veered off here. And that's another good point. Thanks for bringing that up. Be very careful bringing up counter examples, because if you have somebody like this, they will veer off and they'll keep you on that counter example, and you will forget what your original point was. And so this was only brought up as a counter to Shabir's evolutionary point. That's the only reason he brought this up. But now it's, as you say,
a guy says you guys always shit on Islam. Yes, I shit on Islam, and this is the point. If Islam wouldn't be full of bad ideas, I would have nothing to shit on, would I? And this is the whole thing. So it's not
shit on toilets. So if it gives us a toilet, we'll shit on it.
The thing is, if Islam is so much, you know, is so full of bad ideas. Yes, I can criticize those bad ideas. If there is anything else that has bad ideas, I will criticize that as well. So I'm not always saying that veganism is the best and everything. I will also criticize that. I will look at things critically. And if then I'm convinced, well, then I will propagate it. But until then, I will not do so. And that is why, and I've explained this millions of times, why I criticize Islam. I don't know why people still need to ask this question. Sorry.
Might be new viewers. I don't know. Okay, let's carry on.
Fallacy known as an appeal to nature fallacy.
Let's just go back there because I think we've all forgotten the point for a moment. Let me just go back just a few seconds here.
Which one will take precedence?
Reason, without a doubt.
Okay.
Because to use evolution would be a fallacy known as an appeal to nature fallacy. We can't base our ethics on evolution. Otherwise, we would have to lower the age of consent to 11 because girls can have evolved to.
So there you see, Steve, that's his point. That's the reason he brought up the 11 thing, is because he claimed that if you went with evolution as a moral yardstick, then it would be okay to have sex with girls at 11. That was the whole point.
But also, why is the theist using the evolutionary argument?
Because that's the only thing you can think of. At the moment, it seems to me that's the only thing you can think of to challenge the vegan. Because originally he made a very weak point, which he's never supported, which was, hey, I like the taste of meat. By the way, he'll bring it up again. I like the taste of meat, therefore I should be allowed to eat it. That was his original argument, which, of course, is terrible in and of itself, because anybody could say they like anything. Is that going to make it moral? So he'd have to give justification. So that's the only thing he's brought up is, hey, my teeth are evolutionary designed to eat some meat, therefore it should be moral to eat meat. That's his entire point so far. And we're already 18 minutes into this video.
Right. Is it a fallacy, though?
Yes,
let's look at it.
Because we're justifying morals based on nature. That's a fallacy.
Ah, excellent. So I then have to ask
Excellent.
He always does this. He always says, "Oh, this is so good that you say this," but then he says the exact opposite. I've heard this so many times. He did this with Sarah as well, and I pointed this out a couple of times. It's so funny.
Yes, and like I say, it's a way to get somebody's guard down. To get
the
agreement frame lowers your critical thinking.
It's totally dishonest, okay? This is not something that he really thinks. This is not something that he really believes. This is just a tactic. This is the thing.
Yes, exactly right. Quite right.
If we are nature. Yeah.
Did you hear that again? If we're going to appeal to nature again as a suggestion, George just said we're not going to appeal to nature. He said we've got evolution and we've got reason. Which one should we use? George goes reason. He goes, great. What did he just say? If we're going to appeal to nature again, can you see this, people? All you have to do, please go watch this video if you think you just got to pay attention to what's being said here. He now switches back to evolution as if this is George's position. Now George must defend Shabir's position. This is how crazy this is.
Okay? It's the Shabir shuffle.
Yes, exactly, the Shabir shuffle. If Sarah's watching it, he knows it well.
I would suggest that if one person tells me, I look at an animal, I feel compassion for it, but my natural inclination is to eat the animal. What is wrong with my process of reasoning?
Because you're not looking at things from the victim's point of view. The animal does not want to be eaten.
Okay. Now, if I look at it from the victim's point of view, it's going to sound a bit silly, this. But I want to know of one cow that came to me, because if you look
Did you just hear that? If I look at that from the victim's point of view, it's going to sound a bit silly, but I want to know if one cow ever came to me. And then he started off on a separate point. What he would have finished with, come and ask me, would you like to kill me, or is it okay to be killed? He was going to go along those routes, and then his mind obviously just jumped away at the last second. I mean, what a fatuous, as if an animal can come and give you any indication. I mean, they could look at you, with a tearful eye, I guess, and some people have reported that. Animal rights activists have gone and freed animals and reported the tears in their eyes and what they seem to see as sympathy and gratitude and all that sort of stuff. There's a wonderful video online if you ever want to watch it, with some animal rights activists releasing a cow that's been, kept in a stall its entire life. And this cow gets out and they bought it and they take it into a field and it jumps around like it's never moved more than 2 feet. And you can see the delight on this cow. If it translates into delight, that's what delight looks like in an animal.
Look how he switches it without blinking, without anything, he realizes where he's going is not going to work, and mid-sentence he switches.
Yeah, exactly. Not easy to pick this up though if you in the middle of it.
I'm sure you mentioned it on your card that each religion has said things about being compassionate to animals. Yeah, you mentioned that to that gentleman. Yeah. Now, if you look at it from that perspective, then we come back to what this gentleman said about some overarching authority establishing for you what you can and what you cannot do.
At what point are we coming back to that? We never got going on that point. This is now something you bring in about an overarching authority. The whole point is, how do we establish whether eating animals is moral or not? Is it through Shabir's supposed point, which is evolution, or George's, which is reason? Now suddenly we're coming back to a point that we never got off the ground to begin with, or even mentioned, if you go watch the video back, which is some kind of overarching authority.
And it isn't left to the reason of men, which can change at the flick of a button because things just don't suit us. Which one is more logical?
Hang on, that's...
Sorry, I was just asking the question. Which one is more logical?
Sorry, what was the alternative?
Sorry, did you say something?
What was the alternative? The one option was humans
the one option
can
is a
mind.
supreme overarching. There's a supreme overarching. He didn't use the word, but supreme overarching view, and the other is the whim of humans, which can, according to him, change on a dime. Which one is the more logical?
Did he present that as an option, this overarching authority?
He's now brought it in now, and he used the term as if we're bringing it back to that, because George has obviously written on his little pad somewhere about the verses where it says be kind to animals. So he's going to quote the verses from the Quran, the Bible, say, hey guys, look, your book actually says do be kind to animals. And so Shabir picks something and goes, oh, according to that. But still, in order to make a decision, we need one of two things. I'm paraphrasing his words now. Either an overarching decision or humans, which can change them at the flip of a switch. Which one is more logical? So he's just thrown it in there as if we're coming back to that argument, which we never started to get off at any point.
Exactly, because I just heard him say that George mentions religions and their gods and their scripture, and then he suddenly talks about another option. Now, nobody ever brought up the option of a god giving us instructions and then offsetting that against the other option of humans creating laws. This is my objection here, that he's never been clear on this. He's just on the sly suddenly introduced it.
Correct. And for the moment, the evolutionary thing has disappeared. But don't worry, it's going to come back again. Don't worry. It's one of those hidden things that will pop up again when he's in a bit of a catch-22 situation. So wait for it. It'll come back.
No, I don't think it's a difference. I don't think those are the two options here, because is it not possible that morality, there is a universal objective morality that we're in the process of uncovering as human beings, and killing animals is like he's trying to shift the morality to add that, to uncover that morality, that part of the objective morality.
Okay. Yeah, I think what you're saying is morality is very much a subjective thing, and that's very much about what we think is right or wrong to harm someone else. I'm saying it's more considering things from the victim's point of view, and no animal wants to be eaten.
I can see the point you are making. However, you know, if you take it back a few minutes ago when we were discussing other cultures, and I said that there are still cultures now which totally are reliant on animals, for their feed, for their clothing, etc. Are we now going to make a moral judgment on them?
Okay, so we did cover this earlier. He did talk about that earlier. And George didn't give a clear answer, to be fair, so I will call George out a little bit here. He said originally, oh, I can't go and tell them what to do. What he could have or could have, perhaps should have said was, hey, if it's necessary suffering, i.e., in order for you to survive, to eat meat, to clothe yourself with animals, I have no problem. I'd be very surprised if he said, because he wasn't clear on it, all he said originally was, hey, I can't go and tell them what to do. But I didn't hear from him whether he actually agrees that it's okay to, in a circumstance where that's the only way to survive. But that's all he had to say was, hey, in the circumstance where you have to survive with animals, then I accept that that's the only time that you could eat animals.
I would say, I don't think it's okay to kill any animal for any human.
I never asked you that. I'm asking you, are we now in a position to make a moral judgment against them?
Yes, the answer
The answer is a yes.
I don't.
Now, if that is what we are going to do, then now we have a serious problem. Because between us and them, who are more reliant or more conversant with nature? Also,
okay.
What?
His question now is, between us and them, the people that are relying on the animals, who was more reliant or compliant on nature? That is completely irrelevant. Who cares who's reliant? What you're reliant on is yourself, not on nature itself in that sense. But he says reliant or compliant. Now listen to that. He just asked him, I'm going to play this back just for a second so everybody hears this.
because between us and them, who are more reliant or more conversant with nature? Us or them?
They are more reliant on animals to survive than we are.
No, I didn't say that.
I don't preach to Aboriginals.
No, George, my question was, who is more, how can we say, in touch with nature?
That's not what he said. We'll go back here just to...
Conversant with nature, us or them? Then we have a serious problem. Because between us and them, who are more reliant or more...
Yeah, there's a misunderstanding here.
Us or them?
They are more reliant on animals to survive than we are.
No, I didn't say that.
I don't preach to Aboriginals.
He asked him, who's more reliant? And he said, they are more reliant. Now he says, no, that's not what I said.
No. There's a misunderstanding here. What Shabir is saying, who is more in touch with nature, the victim or the people killing them, animals? And what George is understanding is the people who are reliant on animals and who are not. So I think there's two different things here. Whether he's looking at from the point of view from the victim who is being eaten, or the ones who are reliant on those animals. I think there's two different topics here.
Right. Okay. I didn't get that, but okay. I think you've read something extra that I might have missed into it.
No, George, my question was, who is more, how can we say, in touch with nature, us or them?
Well, them, we have technology.
But here's the problem, though. You see, and you pinpointed it. We have developed certain kinds of technology, okay? Yeah. Now, here, the central issue that you have, George, is looking at it from the victim's perspective. Yeah. That's what we are saying here. We are saying, okay, wait a minute. If we are looking at it from the victim perspective, yeah, I then have to naturally think to myself, okay, do I seem to have a position where that particular thing, animal, call it what you want, seems to be subservient to me?
So he's looking at it from the victim's point of view, and he's asking himself the question, is the animal subservient to him? Maybe you guys can explain why that question is relevant. I'm at a loss to understand why, thinking of it from a victim's point of view, you are going to, would anybody, let me ask the question to you guys or to the audience who are listening. If you were looking at it from a victim's point of view, imagine a cow or a sheep was about to be slaughtered and you had, hopefully you were human and you had some empathy and you were going, okay, I perhaps don't want to see this sheep or cow being slaughtered. The reason is I don't want to see it suffer and die. I am pretty sure you're not going to ask yourself the question, is this animal subservient to me? What the hell has that got to do with it? Whether it's wild and running out there or whether you've been caged and kept it in the back of your farm, what difference does that make from the victim's point of view? I mean,
well, yeah, but you need to understand where Shabir is coming from. He's coming from the view that the human is the highest level of creation, and therefore all animals should be subservient to the human being. This is what it says in the Quran.
Yes, because I was going to say it all comes down to how do you define subservience? And we know, again, that's a very theistic
okay.
thing.
Is he attempting and doing it presumably very badly? Is he now trying to attempt to argue that, hey, one of the reasons why we should kill animals is because we are superior to them? Is that potentially
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm sure.
So by that logic, though, he would have to be okay if an alien race invaded here and decided that we were like animals and we could be, and you've seen a few of these movies, they did again one recently, presumably in a thought experiment, he would have to acknowledge then, using that logic and that reasoning, that it would be totally fine for an alien to eat us like meat as well. And we would have nothing to say because clearly that alien is superior to us in every way.
No, in his line of thinking, that doesn't work, because remember, his God created us as the highest beings. So this God must have also created aliens. So because we are the highest, aliens must be subservient to us as well.
Well, presumably, if aliens were more intelligent, they came here on starships, etc., from other planets. In what way would they be subservient to us?
That doesn't feature. No. These factors you can't put into the equation here. This is outside.
We can't use hypothetical arguments. Okay, gotcha. Yes, we've got to be narrowly restricted to.
Exactly.
Right, but remember, this is an open moral question. We're not necessarily taking on his worldview here. So we are asking the open question: should animals be killed and used as meat if we have alternatives? Again, I'll remind everybody, that's the original question.
Yeah, but aliens are just.
Sorry.
I was going to say, I guess if the kafir can be killed, then the animals certainly can be killed.
Yes,
exactly.
If there are some.
And this is why then, if aliens come onto this planet, then it's because Allah is sending us fresh meat.
Well, presumably they would have the technology and ability to overwhelm us, which is often what you see in the movies. And if that were the case, and we were all, imprisoned, etc., we would have no ability or authority or anything else to prevent them from doing whatever they're doing. I encourage you to go watch War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise to see what we're talking about, where they picked them up in those,
But that's when you have Shabir standing in Hyde Park in Speaker's Corner going, oops.
Yeah, you don't want to really go down this route of, hey, I'm the most superior animal on this planet. That in and of itself gives me the right to eat animals. Because the question should be asked, and probably isn't here from what I can remember, is just because you are superior, does that mean that the unnecessary suffering of animals is okay? See, what the point that George never made, unfortunately, and that's a point against him, is to bring in the unnecessary suffering. The moment you bring in unnecessary suffering, that eliminates a lot of these side issues here that sometimes you can go down. Because all you have to say, hey, well, that's not unnecessary suffering, and then you don't have to get sidetracked down certain routes. But okay, let's carry on.
Correct?
Yeah.
How have I come to this position? Because of this. Am I right?
Yeah, you're thinking it.
Yeah. No. Our ability to be able to use reason and have a position where that animal is subservient to me.
So now you're
listen to this.
agreeing that we should use reason.
There you go. Did you hear that? George says, oh, and now so now you're suggesting we should use reason. What's his argument been the entire time? That my teeth evolved, therefore it's a good thing to eat meat. And I'll quickly slip in at one point that we should have an overarching thing telling us whether eating meat is right. We can't decide for ourselves. So now he gets back after, 22 minutes? We're now back at the position where he's claiming, and George has picked up on it, that he's now suggesting reason is what should be used.
No, I didn't say that.
Oh, no, not.
The natural position you can't disagree with.
Wait, what do you mean by subservient?
Subservient is a red herring. Now we're going to go down the route of subservient. He just said reason, and George said, "Oh, you're using reason." No. Let me play it again for you, just so you don't miss this.
You're agreeing that we should use reason.
No, I didn't say that. Because the natural position you can't disagree with. No, our ability to be able to use reason and have a position where that animal is subservient to me.
So now you're agreeing that we should use reason.
No, I didn't say that.
Does anybody else see a problem here? Literally 10 seconds ago, we're going to use reason, points to his head. George goes, yeah, so now you're using reason. No, that's not what I said.
Because the natural position you can't disagree with.
He did disagree with the natural position. How the hell can you make a statement that just says the natural position you cannot disagree with? He's agreed that the natural position exists. He disagrees that that's the way to make a moral decision. And he said it how many times in this video? And now he just says to him, oh, the natural position you can't disagree with, as if George has suddenly agreed with the natural position as a moral methodology to find out whether eating animals is right or wrong. It's mind-boggling.
What do you mean by subservient to you?
Well, the animal, I can take it and I can kill it and eat it.
You have the capability.
Yeah, I have the capability. Okay, I have, don't I?
Yes.
But you see, the natural position...
So I should be subservient to the lion.
Yes, if you're out in the field where you don't have the ability, you've got no sticks or anything, you're walking around in the savannah, are you going to surrender yourself to the lion because he's got the ability to eat you?
So stupid.
That I've got teeth naturally, which allow me to chew meat.
Ah, there we come back all the way again. All the way back again.
What have we just done for 30 minutes?
I know.
That's why I wanted you to watch.
Longer than that.
We're 22 minutes now. That's why I wanted you to watch this video. We carry on. He's now gone back to the teeth thing. He just agreed reason. Then he said, no, you can't argue against evolution, which of course George did because George was using reason. Can you see how confusing it gets here when he does this on purpose? It takes some time.
Yeah, but this is the whole point. If you use reason, he uses evolution. If you use evolution, he uses reason. I mean, come on, it's easy.
Yes. Be a shuffle.
No, you've got to exceed. No, I agree. That's what I.
He doesn't have to exceed anything. Do you see how he throws in? You've got to agree with me. You've got to exceed. No, you don't. The fact that you're changing things around and talking about evolution again now about the teeth, which George never agreed to, other than it happens, it's a fact, but it's not a moral way to make a decision. That's the point. You've got to keep reminding him what he's talking about here. He's confused now at one point. You'll see.
I'm saying we've agreed on that. However, if we are to apply reason now, reason now is telling me I have the position in which I am able to kill that animal and eat it. Okay, I have to now think: will the animal feel pain?
Or you also have the ability to reason to not eat the animal.
I agree.
You can see something else.
I agree, but
He agrees that you should use reason to decide not to eat the animal. 30 seconds ago, he said, no, I'm not using reason. Can you see how quickly this changes? Literally from sentence to sentence, backwards and forwards. So the person who is watching or having a discussion, or the people who are listening in, can't follow along here.
No, you don't know what he actually agrees with. Absolutely.
Huh? Yeah. You can't pin down what he actually agrees with here.
Nail on the head. Are you giving me the choice to do that?
Yeah, I'm giving the choice now as someone living in the...
Okay, notice that as well there. Just by that sentence there, are you giving me the choice to do that? That's called an ambiguous statement. It's not clear what he's actually asking. You've got to sit and go, okay, what is he asking? What is he asking me the choice? Is he giving me the choice to use either reason or evolution, or is he giving me the choice to either kill or not kill the animal? Can you see how it can have more than one meaning? And so used in that ambiguous way, it's another confusion tactic. A more specific way is, hey, do I have the choice to either decide to kill it or not kill it? That's very clear. It's a yes or no. But when you use the term as it is there, it's just an ambiguous term.
Developed country to avoid exploiting animals.
But are you going to, no problem, but are you going to give me equally the choice to be able to do exactly that to the animal?
I can't give you the choice to, I'm just presenting you the choice to not harm animals.
I agree.
I don't want you to slaughter an animal in any way. There's no right way to do the wrong thing.
Now, this is the point though. You see, for me and you to think...
Hang on. This was a very, very important sentence. There is no right way of doing the wrong thing. Yes. Excellent stuff.
That was a very good way of saying it as well. But notice what he's now asking. Instead of asking, should we do it? He's now asking George, can I do it? Do you give me the permission to do it? Again, this is a very different question to the original question, which is, should we kill an animal? Is it right or wrong to slaughter an animal? George's position is no. Shabir is attempting and failing utterly to try and argue the position that yes, it is. But now he switches the question to, would you give me the permission? Is it okay for me to have the choice? That's not the question under discussion.
Way is the issue. What do you think or consider to be the right way, I can say is the wrong way. You will turn to me and say, what I'm thinking is the right way, according to you is the wrong way. How do we resolve this impasse?
Hallelujah. That's the first decent question he's asked at any point. So how do we establish it? What did George say? We use reason and empathy and we look at it from the victim's point of view. How many times has he said that? At least 3 times in this video. What has Shabir said? No, we need to use, at one point, when he doesn't want to change his mind, we should use evolution because our teeth are evolved to eat meat. Therefore, we have a moral position. We can use our evolutionary upbringing as a moral reason to eat meat. That's how we establish it. Do you think we'll get there? Let's see.
He can't help it. He can't get out of his rut. This is where he's in. He can't go left or right. This is the only thing he can do.
Yeah, but this is the question now, where the answer which George has given multiple times, he should have just repeated.
Ban the halal slaughter.
Sorry?
Ban the halal slaughter.
There you go. So somebody in the this old man goes, ban halal slaughter, which I would agree is a moral act. How do we know that? Because we know that animals suffer. We can detect it. Steve has been through it. I've been through it. Abbas tried his luck on that, and we went to do some research on that. And we know, we're not just guessing, we know that animals suffer when their throats are slit as opposed to being stunned. So halal slaughter, if you care about the well-being of animals, is immoral.
Okay, you are entitled to your opinion.
No, but this is the point. It's not opinion. One person is trying to convince the other person. So what he's saying, elevate the animal to the level of the humans.
So that fella in there picked it up. Because again, you notice what Shabir said, oh, that's your opinion. I was watching another video where another Muslim said the same thing. Oh, that's your opinion. So when somebody gives them something that they can't argue, the response, like the get out of jail or move on phrase is, oh, that's just your opinion. No, that's not just their opinion. They're giving a reason. If you want to disagree with it, disagree with it. Don't just say that's your opinion. That's like you're not even engaging. And this fellow that's standing next to him picked up on that.
When you don't harm human because the thought naturally comes to you that I want to be treated, so I will treat him in the similar manner.
Agreed.
He's seeing the same thing with the animal. So he wants to elevate the animal, because we feel that he has the feeling, the animal, we don't consider the feelings of animals at all. Now, when you are treating a human, you don't have to make an extra effort to think.
True.
So now, if we elevate, probably in a few years' time, we will probably see animals in the same perspective that we see other human beings.
Okay.
So we will look back in horror at what we did to animals.
That's an opinion. But if I can just take forward what he said, and it's we are all entitled to that. Yeah. But if
there's one of those throwaway phrases. Hey, that's an opinion. We're all entitled to. Well, please engage with him. Tell him why he's wrong. Don't just say it's an opinion. Anytime anybody says anything, any one of us could just say, hey, that's your opinion. We're all entitled, and then move on. That's not a way to have a discussion.
If I were to suggest what you said, elevate the animal to the position of what?
Of being able to live free from a life of exploitation. That's the right we want to give them.
Right, excellent, George. A life free from exploitation.
Yeah.
That's subjective.
Why is it
Everything is subjective. Everything is subjective.
Oh, my word. You didn't give him a chance to explain why, although he has already done it prior, which you've obviously forgotten. So he's not claiming it's subjective. You've just assumed that it's subjective because you don't have an adequate response to it. Because he even repeated it. Notice he was trying to think there. So he repeated the sentence, an animal free from exploitation. He said it slowly as well because his brain was in a mode of like, okay, what am I going to say next? So that's another little telltale sign that people use. They'll repeat things and they'll do it slowly, so the try and gives the brain time to think of a response. And obviously no response was forthcoming, and so it's just your opinion. That's all that he could get out of his mouth.
I'm glad you are saying that. Now, here is the problem. If everything is subjective...
No. So one tries to convince the other person, everything...
I agree. But what we are saying right now, we are at a position where he says yes, I say no. I say yes, he says no. We are at an impasse. In other words, we can't go this way, we can't go that way.
No, we're not at an impasse. You are imagining there's an impasse. George has given reasons why, reason, etc., is his position. You have attempted to flip-flop between evolution and reason. You have never given a solid reason as to why you should eat meat. I've not heard a single thing from you which I would consider, ooh, that's a good point. Do you know what? You brought up something like you guys did. You brought up about bees, and you brought up about some other things that you could challenge George on. I think those would be good points for George to reflect on. He's not brought up a single thing yet that would give anybody pause to go, you've just not brought up any argument that will support your view that eating meat is right just because you like the taste of it or because you're evolved to eat it. And George even gave a counterexample as well. So
it reminds me of Abbas, who says, well, if the one guy says no, the other one says yes, the truth is in the middle automatically.
Yes, you see, only a Muslim apologist would think like that. Incredible.
Look, if I were to hold this position on a natural level, then I don't have a problem, okay? Because then
we understand that, Shabir, that if you hold the natural position, you don't have a problem. The point is, what reasons have you got for holding the natural position? We have yet to hear anything. Not the fact that, which is flip-flopped, as we all heard in the video, between reason and the natural position. But he hasn't given reasons why the natural position is the one that other people should consider or adopt. And George has given reasons why reason is the way to go. Whether you agree with him or not, at least he's attempted to give reasons why.
it allows me, my teeth have the ability to chew meat, I will chew meat.
No, but you have,
however,
you have the conscious to also think.
Yeah.
Excellent. So the reason now,
The
we
reason,
come
the
to
conscious.
reason. Yeah.
Why base morality on your teeth when you can base it on your own logic to avoid harming animals?
I agree, but you
No, you don't agree.
There you go. I agree, because it is in fact right, and I have got nothing I can say against it, but I'm going to say no but now and just bring up some other nonsense because I haven't got a rebuttal to your position. You gave a wonderful summary there. Why do you have to use your teeth when you can use your, your reasoning, your mental capabilities?
see, you are agreeing with me actually with the two issues I raised. One is reason and one is nature.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Can you see now, people, if you're watching this, what goes on here? At no point did he raise reason. George raised reason and kept to reason this entire conversation. Shabir has flip-flopped between natural and reason throughout this entire thing and now claims he brought up both of these. It's incredible.
Which one takes precedence? We agreed reason.
Yeah.
Yeah?
We agreed reason. Excuse me, no. George agreed reason. You tried to argue the point. And then on occasions, you kind of agreed and then flip-flopped. George has been rock solid on reason from the moment at the beginning of this conversation.
We agreed reason because of what?
Because we have the ability to not.
We have the ability.
Do you know why he asked that question, by the way? I'm sure. I'm speculating, but I'm fairly sure. Because he didn't know the reason why. He could not give a reason for reason. He's so confused at this point that he asked George to give him the reason why he chose reason, because he did not know it. If somebody had to ask him, Shabir, why did George give reason? He would not have been able to respond. So he asked George to give it back to him again because he'd forgotten.
So now we are coming back to the position where I said, okay, George, you are saying yes, I'm saying no. We are at an impasse. How do we resolve it?
So I ask you, do you have any necessity to exploit animals? Do you need to kill animals?
If I were to say yes, what would be the problem?
I would ask you why you need to kill
I'll tell you.
All right, let him just finish this bit, then we'll say.
I love the taste of meat.
Now we come to it.
We are 26 minutes in, and this is the best we've got to. That he loves the taste of animals and the taste of meat, which is what he said at the beginning, and he's never given us reasons why that's a good position to hold.
So everything is just on a whim. And he's been asked, I don't know how many times this guy George has asked him, so you're putting your taste buds over the life of animals. How many times has he asked him exactly this question?
5 or 6 at least. And he's unwilling to accept that. And when asked, he cannot give a reason other than he likes the taste. And that's where we went down the route of, the whole consent thing.
That's not a need. That's a
want. One second.
That's a good point you made there. He said there, that's not a need, that's a want, which is quite right. Yeah.
I love the taste of meat. And when I feel like it, I will eat it. That's not a want, that's a need.
This guy is amazing.
Of course, that's a want. For any rational person who's listening to that, that's a want. It's not a need. A need is, hey, I have to have this, otherwise I'm going to die. And
I have it to slap you.
Yeah. But can you also see with the authority that he attempts to give this with as well, as if he's making a statement that is in fact true, when it couldn't be more false if you tried.
No, I like women. I like to rape them.
Brilliant. Listen to what he just said. He likes women, he likes to rape them.
Should I?
Do you think that is a comparison?
Yes, so he's saying,
Is it a
yeah,
comparison?
I like sex. That means
No,
I
no,
should
no. He
rape
didn't
them.
say that. Let's get it right.
No, no.
He said, I like women and I like to rape
No,
them.
Yes.
And what does that
Exactly.
mean? That means that A, you like to dominate them, B, you like to have sex with them. So why do you say no, 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 as if George has said something wrong there? And that is a valid counter argument.
Hmm.
And he's now asking, well, is that a valid counter argument? Of course it is. If you're claiming that, hey, the reason I can kill animals is because I like meat, then somebody could come along and say, hey, I like sex, therefore I'm going to rape women. And according to Shabir, he would not have an argument against that if he was honest.
Now,
It's
question:
similar- is it similar to
is it
say-
similar? According to the, I agree, brother. According to natural selection, if we leave everything to our baser desires, it's
Yeah.
not wrong, is it? What he said.
No, no,
We're
you are
not
saying
relying
no,
on
no, I'm
We're looking at things from the victim's perspective.
I'm saying
Ah.
you said I can kill animal, I like the taste, so I'm allowed to kill and eat it.
No, I didn't say that.
What you did. Excuse me, how many times have you said exactly this?
That's exactly what he said. No, 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 that's not what I said. I mean, how on earth? It wasn't like that was said yesterday that you could be that forgetful. It literally said it like within the last 2 minutes. So I genuinely don't know if he cannot remember, if he has a problem retaining information or memory, or it's just like, no, 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 every 2 seconds. That's the typical response. If it's not, I agree with you.
I was telling him that it's not, the distinction the brother made between want and need.
So what
I
is
addressed
your-
that.
So what is a need?
But you didn't address it. You claimed that if you wanted to eat meat, that wasn't a want, it was a need, which of course was nonsense. So you didn't address it at all.
To kill animals in your situation, where you live in a developed country and you have access to anything you want to eat without harming animals. Why
Right.
do you have the
One
need?
second. You see, when I kill an animal, yeah, the first thing that has to be established is whether I consider it as though I'm harming the animal.
Well, you
I
are,
need-
because the animal
No,
has
no,
to
no.
be harmed for you to eat.
Dead.
Does not need to be established, no.
Correct. The whole point is killing the animal harming it? And George's position is yes. You don't kill it and then ask, am I harm? Is it harm? The question is asked before you do the killing. That's the whole point of the discussion. What a numpty. It's incredible.
Holding because of what you are. It's not because you think.
It's a fact.
Of course, it's what he thinks. How many times has he said reason? I mean, I apologize for the viewers. It sounds like we're a broken record. We keep responding to the same thing that's been said 15 times, and he just denies it.
It's not my position.
fact.
Anyone here, meat eater or not, will agree that you must harm an animal in order to eat them.
Right.
They have to have their throat slit.
Okay, you have to kill the animal.
Yeah.
Yeah, throat slit, shoot, whatever.
Yeah.
The point I'm making here is, and this is the impasse. Whatever I am doing, okay, I'm entitled to do, even in this developed country. I'm entitled to do that, aren't I?
No, Shabir, you are so confused at this moment. You have no clue what the original point was. Do I need to repeat it? I feel like I might be boring the viewers here. The point is not whether you're entitled to do it. The point is, should you do it? It's a moral question. But he's so confused here now. I don't think he knows where he is.
But his point
I would
about
say no.
rape
Sorry.
is that his point about rape is you're entitled. If you use that logic,
Yeah.
then you could say you're entitled to do anything.
Yeah.
Actually,
You're saying just because you want to do
actually,
something, you have the right to
You are
Actually-
not
actually,
entitled to do
brother,
anything.
Boom. All three of them have got the point here. If you're going to claim that it's a want, i.e., I like the taste of meat, therefore I'm justified in eating meat, then anybody could say the same about something else. And using that yardstick, you would have to grant that it's okay for them to do whatever act it is as well. Let's listen how he tries to get out of this now.
actually, you know what? You are absolutely right, and that's the point we are making.
What I want to
Keep
say
saying
is
that.
sorry,
You keep
apologies.
saying that to me also. You have
There you go. See, they've caught on now as well. The viewers have now caught on. You keep saying that. You keep saying absolutely right to me as well. They've caught on. And what does he do? He puts his hand on there to say, as like a gesture, hey, it's all right. All these little things, it's not easy to pick it all up in the moment, but you can see it happening, when you slow it down to watch it. Like I say, the whole point of this is to educate people on the way that this interaction takes place.
absolutely
Sorry,
right.
let it, yeah.
what I want to say is that you also have to apply morality to the situation.
I agree. However, before you apply Brother, yeah. Before I just wanted to. Yeah, no problem, brother. After you are applying morality, okay. I have again, like I said, I have no issue. But the comparison that the brother made is a correct one. The point that is being made here is this: that if he says he can do that, what is there to stop him?
Notice the sentence he says there. If he says he can do that, what is there for him? What is there to stop him? This is again one of these ambiguous statements that now most people either have to stop and think, or they have to ask the question, Shabir, what are you talking about? So it's a deliberately ambiguous statement, A, to give him more time, and B, to throw a little bit of confusion in that people have to now go and clarify what he could have said much easier, much quicker.
In this country.
And did you see, look at all of them. They're all sitting there now. They're trying to figure it out. The brains are working now. So they've now got inside to try and work out what that ambiguous statement could mean.
If he attempts to do what he said, what is there to stop him?
Just because someone can't
the law
stop
is the
someone
law.
from doing it, that
There's a
doesn't
law.
mean they should do it. So
I agree.
If a woman's been raped down an alleyway and I can't intervene, that doesn't make the rape right.
But you see, there's a problem here. The rape has already been classified as a criminal offense.
Okay. So I told you, watch and see how he tries to get out of it. He now brings in the legal perspective. We're talking about a moral action. His original point was, hey, I like the taste of meat, therefore I should be justified in eating an animal. That's my moral view on that. That's my moral argument for eating the animal. The other guy said, no, well, using that example, you could go out and rape a woman and say, hey, I like having sex, therefore it's okay for me to rape a woman, using that logic. So his escape now is, hang on a moment, but rape is illegal and killing animals is not. That is not the point. So he's brought in another red herring here to confuse everybody, to try and back up his argument for which he doesn't actually have a valid point.
So it doesn't matter where you do it. Okay, if you are found out, you will be prosecuted. The difference is vast between the two. However, the animals, if we say, and that's the effort that you are putting in from what I gather, is to get the society to think to the extent that, look, if there is an alternative to eating meat, why not take it? Because it doesn't necessarily mean that whatever form of suffering you are going to be inflicting on the animal, you are going to be withdrawing from that. And the animal will be safe. That is what we are saying. Okay?
No, we are not saying that, Shabir. George is saying that. Don't make as if you're now in George's camp, because you haven't been. You've been arguing the exact opposite all the time. So again, be honest and say, hey, George, that's what you are saying and I'm disagreeing. No, we are suddenly saying this now.
However, taking it to its logical conclusion, I am saying, if naturally I have the ability to eat meat, okay, and you said, and I agree with you, that reason should now supersede what we do.
Okay, I can't remember now, but I want to just check in with you guys. Do you think he's going to flip-flop back again? I'm not sure. I think he might stay with reason now, but he might actually do a flip-flop back again. He's now agreed again that reason is the overriding methodology to choose in terms of making a moral decision. Why he has to repeat this again for the 7th or 8th time, goodness only knows. But I think because he hasn't got anything else to say here.
Then it comes to that ultimate question. Who will be the final arbiter in determining whether we can or we cannot?
The victim. And that's
where we finally get to where he wants to be.
He said it again, the victim. That's what George's position. No way you can argue with him, yes or no. That's entirely valid discussion to have. But how many times has he said the victim? He's, to my count, at least 3 or 4 times he said the victim. Who's the arbiter? George now says the victim.
You can't have the victim. It's impossible.
Yes, we can. The
It's impossible.
No, the answer is not, let's not. How did we come to this conclusion that rape is a crime? 500 or probably 600 years ago, probably men were allowed to have their ways. Probably. Let's say 1,000. The society, if it wants to grow, it realize it has to empower women. It has to protect the stronger one has to protect the weaker one. And that's how the society grows. That's how this happens. why does Hyde Park happen? It's because the society collectively happens. Tomorrow, if we have to collectively decide how do we behave with the animals, with the weaker, those who are weaker with us. And if there is abundance of, I agree with other things, if there is nothing available, say in the deserts in Sahara, where they can't grow anything, few hundred, now they have oil, they can import virtually everything. But if there is abundance of grains and food, why should we harm? And should we not raise us conscious about by not killing the animal and not consuming them? And that is the question.
Okay, for those that, I don't know if you heard that all. Basically, he's suggesting, and that's the entire question, really. Hey, if we've got an abundance of plants and animals and we are able to feed ourselves, why not raise our consciousness or whatever the case is? This is what this gentleman with a little sort of cap is saying. That's the question he's putting to Shabir. Let's see if Shabir can in any way answer that. Because that's
Robert, before that, because before he said this about rape, is that we have decided that rape is bad, where, for example, somebody like Muhammad in Islam did not say that rape is bad. He actually told his men it's okay to rape the women. So this is something that has changed in the last centuries, and this is why today human beings have said that, even though the God does not.
Yes, exactly. Although, as you know, Stops, the standard apologetic to that is, hey, they can only take slaves in war. But even if we gave them all of that, you're quite right. Rape is always wrong, or virtually always wrong. I mean, I suppose you could find a hypothetical where most people would agree that it's right, but in 99 recurring 9 times out of 100 or 1,000 or 10 million, it's wrong. And so, regardless.
Yeah, I have no problem with what you said. The final analysis again is back to what
I have no problem with what you said, but I cannot possibly answer the question, which is the entire question that this entire morality argument is about. So all I'm going to do is bring it back now and not answer your question at all.
we said. Who is going to be the final arbiter? Now, you know what you said.
Who was the
What did he say earlier? They said the victim. Now he asked the question again, because he couldn't answer the gentleman's well-posed question about whether, in the future, if we had all the grains and stuff, should we not bring animals up to our level?
Final arbiter to judge that raping is bad. Who was the final?
I'll tell you what. You see,
No, are you taking to religion? Sorry, are you taking to the religion?
No, I only said let's ask the question. But what you said, brother, I think you might not have respectfully thought it through.
Think of the irony of that statement. What you just said, brother, you haven't, with respect, thought that through. He had a very well-posed question which you could not or refused to answer, and you just went into a bit of a babble here.
Let me ask you this. If today we collectively agree that raping women is okay, is that valid?
No, because you're going by the majority. That's not looking at
it will degrade, yes.
A few hundred years ago, okay, if you take this is the problem. If you take it through logically, if collectively we use our collective conscience as the arbiter, and we all decide, okay, let's make it legal today, does that make it right?
No, it does not make it right.
It doesn't.
No,
but then that means,
sorry,
brother,
sorry.
That means that the final arbiter is going to be something other than us normal human beings.
No, wait.
Don't take it to
I've taken it to its conclusion, my perspective.
One more option.
Oh, excellent.
No, can I answer this question?
I'm going to move on to another conversation, guys. So I'm going to give you a card. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Anything untoward?
Yeah.
Not intended.
Worry, sir.
It was in the spirit of the discussion. Thank you very much, George.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, so it's a pity though that we never got to hear the last bit that I am sure he wanted to say and he would have come to, and that is that the final arbiter, the highest authority, the highest everything, is the guy in the Quran who can decide things that we have no knowledge of, and therefore we should all submit to this God. I'm sure this is where he was going now.
Yes, I'd love to bring him on the show here and have. Well, I don't say I'd love to have him on. I'd bring him on the show here and try and get him to argue objective morality from his God's point of view and see how well he does. Because you're right, that's the end goal he was doing there. So, a couple of thoughts then, guys. What's your overall thoughts, and what would be your suggestions if somebody were to have a conversation with him or somebody else? Steve, what's your overall thoughts from all of that?
I mean, to be frank, I think he's one of the most disingenuous, dishonest, pseudo-intellectuals I've ever come across at Speaker's Corner. And I've long since given up even trying to have a discussion with him because I just know it's going to be a complete waste of my time that I'm never going to get back. To put it briefly.
Blunt and to the point, I like it. Stops, your thoughts after all of that.
Look, how can I add to that? I mean, come
on. Thank you guys for doing that. The reason I wanted to do this for the viewers was for an educational point of view, to slow down and show you. Now, all three of us here are quite well aware of the tactics that are being used here. But if you're the first time you're ever going down, or if you saw this, or if you were one of those Muslims that told us in the comments, and that's the other reason I did it, all those commenters who told us how wonderful Shabir is, he's just a level above everybody else. Hopefully now, if you had any intellectual honesty and you went back and watched this video and you looked at what we said and what he said, because the video is available for you to watch, you will see the dishonest sophistry and obscurantism. But I wanted to get back to, because we talked about it briefly at the beginning, but I want to just talk a little bit more at the end now. What could one do if you were in a conversation either with him or with somebody else? So, Stops, you did mention taking a step back at a certain point. If you're not sure where the conversation is going, taking that step back and go, okay, let's just clarify, where are we now? What are we actually talking about?
The main thing is doing the Sarah, and that is just sticking to the point. In other words, you do not allow this distraction. If you are talking about Moses, stay with Moses. Don't suddenly start talking about other things like what he was doing. He was trying to bring in all sorts of things. Don't allow that. Stick to the topic. Stick to the point.
And when he keeps completely disingenuously saying, "Yes, I agree with you. I completely agree with you," challenge him. What are you agreeing with? What have I just said that you are agreeing with?
Spot on. Yeah, get him on the spot for doing that, because that's just a sophistry trick that comes out of his mouth. Instead of saying, "Do you know what? No, I don't agree with you, and here's the reasons why." At least they'd be honest. But the moment somebody says you don't agree, obviously you are now your psychology is peaked to understand why not. You're now in full critical thinking mode. To whatever degree you're able to do that, you're now peaked. But the moment somebody says you agree, it's like, psychologically it lowers the barrier just a little bit, so that you're now not thinking as critically. So it's as you quite rightly say, it's a dishonest tactic, and it's a case of then asking him, and again at the beginning, nailing in the very beginning of the conversation. Hey, so what we're going to talk about in our talk together here is about the morality or not of eating meat. I say it's immoral to eat meat when with unnecessary suffering. So the only time you could be justified is if you had to survive on it. Your position is presumably no, you do think you can eat meat, and you're going to give your reasons why. Great. Let's go ahead and have that conversation. You've now defined the terms so that you can refer back to it when it goes off track. The other thing to be very careful of is allowing yourself or him to bring up examples or counterexamples or metaphors or stories, because any of these will distract for 15 minutes down the road. It happened to me. We talked about homosexuality in one of our conversations. Then he brought up a ridiculous example. He said to me, I don't know if I've mentioned on my show before, in one of the conversations, I asked him about homosexuality. It's still on a video on my channel somewhere. And he said, along the lines of, sometimes it's okay up to a point, and then it's wrong. Type words to that effect. And then we started having a bit of a conversation. Then he brought up an example to try and see where were my morals. And he asked me, if a woman was about to commit suicide and the only way to save her was having sex with her, would you do it? I told my wife about that example, and she burst out laughing. And rightly so. So you got to be, the point is, he'll come up with a ridiculous scenario to try and talk. Another conversation I had with him was telling him about all his sophistry and stuff, which of course went over his head. And then he tried to bring up an example about a mobile phone. And if you find a fault with the mobile phone, where's the best place to go? And we had a whole discussion about that as well. So you got to be very careful about allowing it to go off on tangents, and for him to, the moment he says, let's bring up an example, you're like, no, don't bring up an example. I'll let you know if I'm confused and I need an example. Please do not bring up an example. You are just going to derail the conversation, especially with him. The last thing you need is for him to bring up anything else, because as we saw in this discussion, off it goes into jurisprudence, into other topics that are completely unnecessary and are irrelevant to the discussion being had.
And don't fall for the Shabir shuffle where suddenly you are being challenged to prove something that you never even claimed.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. And taking your position, I think you would have to agree with me. No, of course I don't agree with you. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this discussion. But those sophistry sentences to try and link them all together to make you, because what it actually does is it creates doubt in your head. You go, am I agreeing with you? What is it we're agreeing with? And now you start to think, because he said to you, you're agreeing. And when somebody says, yeah, I agree with you, or you have to agree with me, immediately, most often, your first thought is, well, what is it that I'm agreeing with? And that takes your mind off the point that you're just talking about. So many of these things are used as a methodology to confuse and to get people off the point. And the only time I've ever seen him remotely try and do something is if there's the Bible or whatever the case is, and he thinks he's got a point on the Bible, then he'll try to some degree to stick on it. But whenever there's any of these sort of conversations where he doesn't have good arguments or reasons, then it's all the sort of sophistry and obscurantism.
And I appealed to his ego, and I almost had him here. And he agreed. He said, yes, I'm going to come on the Jinn&Tonic show. But then in the last minute, he decided, no, I'm too scared.
Well, it's an open invitation. So anybody that knows him, I mean, I'll have him on here between the three of us here, or me and Stops if Steve is not available, and we will have a conversation at least. We'll more likely interrogate, because we're not going to allow that sort of behavior. And you can bring up whatever topic, and we'll have that conversation. But I hope that's been instructive for you, just to break it down, to slow it down, to show you some of what's going on. And there's probably things that we missed that some of you might have picked up in there. Suffice to say, for me, that's one of the most disingenuous arguments I've seen, in the sense of like trying not to get to the point and flip-flopping and not agreeing and so forth. And obviously, poor George got caught into that. I mean, credit to him in the sense that he said, hey, this is reason and this is my position. And as we said, Shabir was so confused at one point that he had to ask him why reason is the way to go, because he could not remember. He was all in the spin there, and he had to ask, even though he apparently agreed with reason, he couldn't give a reason, and so had to ask George for a reason. And that sort of stuff. So definitely one of those rare occasions when he confused himself and refuted himself multiple times as well. So that's why I thought that was quite a useful video to have. So,
and never think that he's a nice guy. He is a compulsive liar, and he will do anything to make you look stupid. Don't ever think that he's pally-pally with you. Definitely not.
Absolutely not. He's smarmy, disingenuous.
Yeah, it's a disarming methodology, and then at the end, please, if anything untoward was said, forgive me, type of thing. When you know he was. I mean, Phil had a discussion with him as well, and I think most of us know that Phil is pretty on the ball. And afterwards, Phil came back to me as well. Afterwards, he walked away at one point, and then you had people in that video say, "Oh, Phil's running away," as if Phil would run from anything.
Hang on, I had the best conversation with him when I was speaking through Ike, and I asked him, "Do you believe in talking ants?" And he says, "Yes." That's the best thing.
Oh yes, I remember that. I don't know where that video is. That's obviously.
I've got it on the Qur'an claims, I think. Oh no, it's speakers. I think I put it on speakers.
Oh, okay. You can find that and show people. Those sort of matters. You know what? Stop. We really need to get a Patreon thing going, because I'd definitely pay to have you come over for a weekend, bring your wife over, chill out in a nice hotel in London, and then you come on Sunday for a whole day. Tell her, honey, go and shop and go look around London. I'm going to this corner. I'll be back 11 o'clock at night. Some discussions and then some. Got to get you here at some point.
I don't think this will work.
So, thank you guys for that. If you're viewing, if you've got any question for us, let us know. If there's any other videos at some point you'd like us to critique, then let us know that as well. We might do one once every couple of months, thereabouts. Maybe once a month or once a month and a half, whatever it is. Whenever we don't have another topic that's readily available that we want to discuss, then that's always of interest. So let us know. So from your guys' point of view, is there anything else on that in terms of the discussions, these sort of discussions? I think we're most of us agree that, you know, there's not a lot of honesty among the regulars, sadly.
No.
Like I say, the only guy for me was that polite Hamza. And I don't say he was like the super smart guy or anything. He was just very polite, and he attempted to argue, you know, as rationally as he could from his position. But that's a fairly, unfortunately, unique experience for me. And as I say, I've got 2 or 3 videos where we had that sort of conversation, but it's rare. But again, I'd like to have the Shias on. So if anybody's in contact with the Shias, maybe I should try and get hold of Kalam. But to be clear, if I'm going to have the Shias on here, it's not necessarily just to have a conversation. Kalam has given them a platform where they can, you know, do their preaching from his platform. That's absolutely fine. He's entitled to do that. If they're going to come on here, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to ask them what they believe and why, and see whether they can defend their positions any better, or at least not dishonestly. I'm okay if somebody doesn't know something, or, you know, the arguments are not great, they can go away and think about it, whatever the case is. But what I'm vehemently against is dishonest tactics. Perhaps we can get 1 or 2 of them on here and see if they can defend and what their views are, or how they differ from Sunni generally. And you probably know that already, Stops, or their version of it, and then defend it. Tell us why we should believe that too.
I've just realized that both Ali Dawah and Shabir and the Ants are not on my Speaker's Corner Analyzed channel. I need to put them up there.
Yeah, somebody's talking about, can you talk a little bit about the Ericksonian hypnotherapy techniques? I have to bring it up again. It's something I did, how many years ago now? Basically, it's a guy called Milton Erickson. He was an expert at developing ways of just talking. He would just have patients that came and sat with him and said, "Hey, Dr. Erickson, I've got a problem. You know, I feel like I can't work properly. I can't do my best. I'm having X, Y, and Z issues that have some psychological issue, whatever it is, or psychological block." And he'd sit and talk to them. But he'd use various techniques to remove the critical thinking so that he could, in a sense, communicate with their unconscious, is the sort of term that's often used. And so he would use these techniques, a bit like Shabir does, but obviously at a much, much higher level. And he would string these sentences together. I'd have to go and find them. But if I strung it together, if I did like a Milton Erickson paragraph here, you guys would not know what the hell I'm talking about. I mean, the sentences would make sense in the sense that they're not gibberish English, but they are so vague and ambiguous that your brain eventually switches off. It's just, there's too much to process. It's too vague and ambiguous, and the brain just kind of, in a sense, doesn't switch off like you fall asleep or anything, but it's just like, he would actually get people to do that. So there's videos of him, if you go look it up on the internet, he will get, by just talking to people with a certain technique, he would get them into a hypnotic state where their eyes would close, they would be in a very relaxed state, in a suggestive state where he could, you know, help them in a therapeutic way. And so that's where that sort of technique is incredibly powerful and useful, is helping people in that way.
That's what the Quran does.
Yes, just not quite as what's the word? Positively. Let's put it that way. So there we go. Cool, guys. I appreciate it. Is there anything else from your side? Otherwise, let's see if we can decide on a topic for next week. I was looking at the state of unbelievers or so forth in Islam, but Stops was saying that's very quick. We can get through that too quickly.
Yeah, but it's always nice to have a topic, then we can talk about it. I could always bring in some more details or something.
Sure.
If we're not boring people to death, then let's do it. And then if anybody wants to join in and has an opinion about it, then of course we can continue with this.
Okay,
so
cool.
As an overarching or whatever theme, we can just keep non-believers in Islam. And if anybody wants to contribute, absolutely.
All right, so next week's topic will be non-believers in Islam, because again, the reason this came up recently is because I heard Ali Dawah talking about how non-believers in Islam are treated exactly the same as believers, and nobody's got any fear in it.
Okay, it will take me 10 seconds to come up with a list of Umar.
Well, let's do that for next week then, and we can go through it. I'll
Okay.
see if I can find a video at some point of him saying, no, you know, it's
Yeah, let's start like that. That's brilliant. Yeah, excellent. Good.
everybody's there's no problems with unbelievers, everybody's treated equally, etc. Cool. All right, guys. I think that's it. If there's nothing else in the chat there, no other questions, then I think, have you got a hadith for us, Stops? Or would you find one?
Sleep.
Steve, you going to be down on Sunday?
Not this Sunday, no.
Looks like it's going to be a little bit rainy, but I'm guessing you're going to be down next Sunday.
Without doubt.
Man, I wish I could make that. I am, in a sense, stuck at home here, unable to.
And now they've moved the end of it to Whitehall, which I imagine is based on police advice because the expected numbers.
I thought it was the head office.
Yes, but actually,
or where?
But where their head office is, it's very, very narrow streets. So I think it's a bit difficult. So yeah, they've moved it now to Whitehall. I see them outside Downing Street.
Do you know yet, or are you at liberty to say where it starts?
Well, so the original plan was that it was going to start at Speaker's Corner and then walk to Whitehall. I'm not 100% sure whether it is going to be a march from Speaker's Corner to Whitehall or whether it will just be a gathering at Whitehall. But no doubt, that'll be in the police's hands and they'll be governing which it is.
Be nice to have a march to remind people. I think there's too many members of the public that haven't fought for it, don't realize how valuable it is, go about their lives and just go, there's some more marches down there. What are these idiots doing? And it couldn't be, it's probably one of, if not the most important democratic right and freedom we have. And, people just who are not in the space that we talk about and others just take it for granted because their parents didn't have to fight for it.
Yeah, I agree. Even if it was just a gathering at Speaker's Corner or just a gathering at Whitehall, yeah, it doesn't get that same presence, does it?
No, it doesn't get the attention and so forth. Not that it'll be on the news anyway, or if it is, it's on the back page. I mean, it's on Sunday. Unless a nuclear war goes off, it's probably pretty quiet on Sundays news-wise anyway. But do you think that'll make any difference?
It will not hit the mainstream media at all unless there is large-scale violence, and let's hope there isn't large-scale violence.
Yes, or unless Tommy Robinson or his supporters do something, that'll hit the front page news. But if somebody else does something, you won't hear that, or the march goes off successfully. Very unlikely that you'll hear that either.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Good. Well.
Okay, then. This actually fits in nicely because I'm doing a video at the moment because I don't know why suddenly embryology is coming back. That people are claiming that the Quran contains embryology, and I'm just doing a counter video on that. I've just done that in English. Now I'm doing one in German, and this hadith is a multiple one. So this appears like I don't know 8 or 9 times or something, and it goes like this. It's narrated by someone. In this case, it's Abdullah bin Mus. And it says, Allah's apostle, the true and truly inspired, said, the matter of the creation of a human being is put together in the womb of the mother in 40 days. Then he becomes a clot of thick blood for a similar period, and then a piece of flesh for a similar period. So that would mean that you are a sperm for 40 days, then you're a clot of blood for 40 days, and then a piece of flesh for 40 days. And in reality, after, I don't know, like 50, 60 days, you're done. It's no longer an embryo, it becomes a fetus. And this is total nonsense what it says in the hadith. And there are Muslims who seriously say that this should be part of the scripture when it talks about there's total nonsense here.
Yeah, it sounds like nothing to do with actual biology, as I'm sure Steve will attest. And of course, who was it? PZ Myers, Richard Dawkins, that famous running that taught us, and Adnan Rashid in Ireland or wherever it was.
Yeah, Ireland.
If you haven't seen that, folks, go view that. PZ Myers, Muslims. If you type something like that in, you'll pick up the video. And Aaron Ra was there as well. So yes. Brilliant, guys. Thank you very much for the show. Hopefully you viewers found that useful. So if you ever do debate somebody like that or come across those sort of techniques, you'll be able to pick that up and either walk away from it or deal with it in better ways. So,
but what is interesting, I'm sure that as soon as we are able to grow meat, So we do not have to kill animals anymore. Someone undoubtedly will find this in the Quran that this was known all along.
Yes.
Yes. There's something can be reinterpreted, isn't it? And that's always been my point. You know, if God was so brilliant, he could have written a book that would never require interpretations, could be understood by every single human without doubt around the world, and there'd be no scholars necessary.
And another thing, yes, this is important. Pull-ups, thank you very much. We had a guy on the Jinn&Tonic show called Nadir Ahmed, who's a total nutcase, but he is still debating people on all sorts of things. Even though here on the show we took him apart completely and utterly, and disproved everything. I've made videos disproving his stuff and refuting and debunking and ridiculing his stuff, but he's still repeating the same old bullshit. And now he's on the show with Abdullah Samir next week. So they're going to be talking about scientific Quran miracles, something we showed him does not exist, but he will still do it. So if you want to go and watch it, it's going to be next week. So if you want to comment on that, actually, I should go in there and give some facts there as well. I don't know how good Samir is with these things.
Well, hopefully he'll be able to deal with it. But I don't think he's been an ex-Muslim as long as, you know, you've been going through it from that position. So I'm sure your help would be useful if you got an opportunity.
Yeah, because I know the things from the top of my head, and it's very difficult if somebody hasn't, been involved in this and doesn't know the apologetics, the standard things that come up. You know, then you get lost in details.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I'm just
okay. Gang, thumbs up, man. Come on.
Please send us some thumbs up here for the video and stuff. Hopefully that's been useful. You've gained something from that with our breakdown there. So next week we'll be talking about unbelievers in Islam as an overarching topic, and we'll bring in different things. If you've got anything you want to add, if you ever get any comments that you think are crazy, if you ever got any comments where you want us to talk about something, either message me at speakerscorneruk@gmail.com, leave us a comment here in the comments, or send it to me on Facebook, Rob Speakers Corner. So either one of those two, you'll pick me up, or on Twitter, Speakers Corner UK, because the Jinn&Tonic show and Speakers Corner YouTube channels are kind of linked together. So everything apart from Jinn&Tonic, I run through the Speakers Corner UK. I've just got that set up everywhere else. So with that said, I don't know if this person was asking a question. No, it didn't seem like it. So with that said, I want to thank my co-hosts, Steve and Stops, the two S's tonight. Thank you all.
Thanks, Rob.
Welcome. Everybody pray for Tan that he comes back to the UK.
Tan, peace be upon him.
Yes, there's that's the last thing before we say goodnight. Yes, there was this people have started, haven't they, with Tan? What's it called, Steve? This sort of Tan religion again? What is that called?
Well, he gave a prophecy. Don't test me on it, but
yeah, but people are like calling it Tanism or Tan, like some kind of, you know, like tongue-in-cheek religion type thing.
No, yeah, but he called it tango.
Tango.
Oh, tango. Okay, you're like gang. There's tang. Yeah, we should. That's what you should do. That's what you should do, Steve. Great suggestion there in the comments. Steve, you should get together with some of the atheists or whoever and do a tang circle, T-A-N-G, or tang. Circle.
No, we'll have a tang triangle.
Yeah.
Tang triangle, all wearing red coats. Exactly.
Yeah, instead of
orange. Get the color right.
Tang triangle or the tang
orange.
Triangle.
Orange, and then your hair one half black, one half white. Absolutely.
Yes. I'm not getting a tattoo on my face though.
Bye guys. See you next week.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye.